Story 1.
I counted it down to the penny. Every single time. $743. That's how much Greg Holloway stole from me between January and May. $743 in shaved hours edited timesheets and quiet little adjustments. He thought I was too tired or too desperate to notice. He was half right. I was tired. I was desperate. But I noticed every single one. My name is Denise, and for 3 years I worked the line at the Bluebird Diner on Eastern Avenue in Baltimore. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner service. I flipped eggs at 6 in the morning and plated crab cakes at 10 at night. I did it because I had a 7-year-old daughter named Maya who needed shoes that fit and a roof that didn't leak, and because the Bluebird was the only place that would let me work around her school schedule. So when I tell you I walked out on Mother's Day, the single busiest night that diner has ever seen, I need you to understand something first. I didn't do it on impulse. I did it because a person can only swallow so much poison before their body decides it's done. The first time I caught it, I almost convinced myself I was wrong. It was late January, a Tuesday. I'd worked a double clocked in at 5:47 a.m., clocked out at 9:12 p.m. I remember because Maya's babysitter charges extra after 9, and I was watching that clock like a hawk. When my paycheck came that Friday, the stub showed I'd clocked out at 6:30 p.m. Just like that. Almost 3 hours gone. I went to Greg's office, and he barely looked up from his computer. System glitch, he said. I'll fix it next cycle. He didn't fix it. The next pay period, I lost an hour and a half across 3 shifts. The one after that, 2 hours. Always small enough to seem like a mistake. Always just enough to keep me from making rent without dipping into the jar I kept hidden in my closet Maya's birthday money from her grandmother. I started photographing the time clock every shift. I'd hold my phone up to that little screen and snap a picture of my punch-in and punch-out times. I kept a handwritten log in a composition notebook, the kind Maya uses for school. Date time in, time out, total hours. Every single day. By March, I had a stack of evidence that would make a labor attorney weep. But here's the thing about being a single mother making $11.50 an hour. You don't have a labor attorney. You have a landlord who wants the rent on the first, a power company that doesn't care about your problems, and a little girl who asks why you're always sad when you look at the mail. So you keep your head down. You keep cooking. You keep swallowing. I wasn't the only one either. That's what made it worse. Tomas, our prep cook, had been there longer than me. He'd mentioned discrepancies before, but his English wasn't strong, and Greg knew it. He'd wave Tomas off, talk fast, use big words, make him feel stupid for asking. Lakeisha on the fryer, she was 19 first real job. She didn't even know how to read a pay stub properly. Greg was counting on that. And Cheryl, our dishwasher, 62 years old with bad knees and worse eyesight, she trusted Greg because he called her sweetheart and let her sit down during slow periods. She had no idea he was skimming from her too. I tried to tell them. Tomas listened. He started keeping his own notes. Lakeisha got nervous, said she didn't want trouble. Cheryl told me I was being paranoid. That stung. But I kept my notebook. In April, I went to Greg one more time. I brought my phone, my photos, my notes. I laid it all out on his desk like a court case. He leaned back in his chair, that fake leather chair that squeaked every time he shifted his weight, and he smiled at me. Not a warm smile. The kind of smile a person gives you when they know you have no power and they want you to know it too. Denise, he said, if you're unhappy with your compensation, you're welcome to find employment elsewhere. But I'd hate to lose you. You're a valuable part of the team. Valuable. He actually said that word while sitting 3 feet from a computer he'd used to steal my money. Then he added almost as an afterthought, and I'd hate for there to be any issues with your schedule. I know how important it is for you to work around Maya's school. That wasn't a suggestion, that was a threat. Adjust your schedule, lose your childcare arrangement, lose everything. He knew exactly what he was doing. He'd built a cage around me out of my own need, and he was daring me to rattle the bars. I went home that night and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. Maya was asleep in the next room. I could hear her breathing through the thin wall. I opened my notebook and added up every stolen hour, converted it to dollars, and stared at that number. $743. That was Maya's summer camp. That was the brake job my car needed. That was 3 months of the inhaler she uses when the humidity gets bad. That was my life leaking out through a hole that someone else had drilled. Mother's Day fell on May 12th that year. The Bluebird had been advertising a special brunch through dinner service for weeks. Greg had taken 200 reservations. 200. For a diner with 68 seats? He'd planned 3 seatings back to back to back starting at 11 a.m. and running until 9 p.m. The kitchen was supposed to be me, Tomas, Lakeisha, and a part-timer named Devin who'd called in sick the night before and everyone knew wasn't coming. I got there at 9 a.m. to start prep. Greg was in his office with the door closed on the phone laughing. I could hear him through the wall, while I diced onions and portioned crab meat and prepped 200 plates worth of hollandaise. Tomas came in at 10, Lakeisha at 10:30. We looked at each other and we knew. 3 of us. 200 covers. 10 hours of service. At 10:45, Greg came out of his office and pinned the day's specials to the board. He clapped his hands like a football coach. "Big day, team. Let's make it happen." Then he went back to his office. The first seating hit at 11, and it was chaos from the jump. Tickets printing faster than we could read them. The fryer screaming. The grill loaded edge to edge. I was running the pass and working the grill simultaneously, calling orders, plating, wiping rims, pushing food out. Tomas was a machine on prep, but he was drowning. Lakeisha was doing her best, but she was 19, and she was scared. At 12:17 p.m., in the middle of the worst rush I'd ever worked, Greg walked into the kitchen to tell me that table 14 had complained their eggs were overcooked. He didn't offer to help. He didn't touch a pan. He stood there in his khakis and his polo shirt and told me to tighten it up. I looked at him. I looked at the grill. I looked at the 60 tickets hanging on the rail. And something inside me, something that had been bending for 5 months, just snapped clean through. I turned off my burners. I untied my apron. I folded it once and set it on the counter. "Denise, what are you doing?" "I'm leaving, Greg." "You can't leave. We have 200. I know exactly how many reservations you have. And I know exactly how many hours you've stolen from me. $743. I pulled my notebook from my back pocket and dropped it on the pass. It's all in there. Every shift. Every discrepancy. Every photo is backed up to my cloud. His face went white. Not red. White. I turned to Tomas. He was already untying his apron. He looked at Greg and said very quietly, "Me too." Lakeisha's hands were shaking, but she turned off the fryer. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. We walked out through the back door into the alley. The sun was warm. It was Mother's Day, and I didn't have flowers or brunch or any of that, but I had my notebook and my daughter and what was left of my dignity. Cheryl stayed. She didn't know what was happening. But I'd already texted her everything the night before, the photos, the math, all of it. She read it during the chaos that followed. From what I heard later, and I heard plenty, because Baltimore's restaurant world is a small, gossipy place, Greg Holloway spent the next 4 hours behind that grill himself. A grill he hadn't worked in 15 years. He burned through 2 cases of crab cakes. He sent out raw chicken to table 9. A woman found a piece of steel wool in her salad. By the third seating, he'd canceled the remaining reservations and locked the front door. The Bluebird's Yelp page looked like a crime scene by midnight. Cheryl quit the next day. She came to my apartment with a Tupperware container of potato salad and tears in her eyes. She said she'd checked her own pay stubs against her hours. Greg had taken over $1,200 from her across 2 years. $1,200 from a 62-year-old woman who washed dishes for a living. I filed a wage theft complaint with the Maryland Department of Labor the following Monday. Tomas filed one too. Lakeisha's mother helped her file hers. Cheryl's nephew, who turned out to be a paralegal, filed hers. The investigation took months, but the math was the math, and my notebook was bulletproof. Greg Holloway was ordered to pay full restitution to all 4 of us, plus penalties. The Bluebird closed 6 weeks later. Not because of us, because Greg had been skimming from the owner too, a retired couple in Towson who trusted him to run the place honestly. Last I heard, he was managing a car wash in Dundalk. I got a job at a better restaurant in Fells Point. $12 more an hour benefits and a manager who keeps the timesheets where everyone can see them. Maya started summer camp on time. I got the brakes fixed. I bought her a new inhaler. And I kept the notebook. I'll always keep the notebook. Because $743 might not sound like much to some people, but to me it was the price of learning that silence isn't survival. It's just a slower way of losing everything.
Story 2.
I got a letter in my mailbox on a Tuesday telling me my mailbox was wrong. Not broken. Not falling over. Not offensive. Just wrong. Non-compliant. With Section 14, subsection 3B of the Ridgecrest Villas Homeowners Association Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. My mailbox, the one that came with the house when I bought it 6 years ago, was apparently 3/4 of an inch too tall and painted in a shade of black that wasn't the approved shade of black. The fine was $200 per week until corrected. And that's how I met the real Gerald Pruitt. Everybody in the neighborhood knew Gerald. Retired insurance adjuster. 63 years old. Khaki shorts, white New Balance sneakers, clipboard always tucked in under his arm like he was conducting a building inspection on the Hoover Dam. He'd been HOA president for about 18 months by the time that letter landed in my allegedly criminal mailbox, and for most of that time, people thought he was just annoying. Fussy. The kind of guy who'd measure your grass with a ruler and feel righteous about it. But Gerald wasn't fussy. Gerald was strategic. And I was too busy working 2 jobs and raising my daughter alone to see what he was actually doing until he came for me. 6 months before the mailbox letter, Gerald had proposed installing a gated entry system for our subdivision. Not a simple arm gate. A full decorative wrought iron automated gate with a guardhouse camera's keypad accessed the whole production. Price tag $85,000 funded through a special assessment that would cost every homeowner roughly $2,200. The vote was 31-19 against. I was one of the 31. I didn't have $2,200 lying around. I was stretching every paycheck to cover my mortgage, my daughter Lily's braces, and groceries that seemed to cost more every single month. I voted no, and I thought that was the end of it. It was the beginning. Within 3 months of that vote, 7 homeowners who'd voted no received violation notices. Barbara Chen got cited for a window AC unit that had been there for 4 years. Mark and David Ostrowski were fined for having a commercial vehicle in their driveway, Mark's work van, with a small plumbing logo on the door. The Wynns were told their backyard fence was 2 inches too close to the property line. Every single fine was steep. Every single one came with threatening language about liens and legal action. And every single recipient had voted against Gerald's gate. I didn't connect the dots at first. I was too busy panicking about my own situation. $200 a week. That's what Gerald was charging me for a mailbox. I called the management company the HOA used some outfit called Desert Peak Community Services and got a woman named Trish who sounded like she'd rather be anywhere else on the planet. She told me I needed to submit a modification request to replace the mailbox with an approved model, wait for board approval, then complete the work within 30 days. The approved mailbox cost $180. The modification request fee was $75. And during the weeks I waited for approval, the fines would keep accumulating. I did the math on a napkin at my kitchen table and felt my stomach drop. By the time I could fix the problem, I'd owe over $1,000 in fines for a mailbox that had been perfectly fine for 6 years. That's when I started paying attention to the rest of the neighborhood. And that's when I noticed Carl Jessup's garage. Carl lived right next door to me. He and Gerald were tight. They went to the same church, played golf together on Saturdays. And Carl had been one of the 19 who'd voted yes on the gate. Carl had converted his 2-car garage into a living space about 8 months earlier. I'm talking drywall, carpet, a mini-split AC unit, the works. His nephew lived in there, no permits. No modification request. No approval from the HOA, and no fines. I walked past it every single day. The garage door was permanently sealed shut with weather stripping visible from the street. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't hidden. Gerald drove past it every time he did his little patrol around the neighborhood. He just didn't see it. Because he didn't want to. That realization changed something in me. I went from scared to angry in about 48 hours. I started knocking on doors. Not all of them, just the ones I knew had gotten violation notices. Barbara answered hers with red eyes like she'd been crying. The Ostrowskis were furious, but felt helpless. The Newens had already started talking to a lawyer, and every single one of them had voted no on the gate. I sat in Barbara's living room with 5 other homeowners, and we laid it all out on her dining table. Every notice, every fine, every date. The pattern was undeniable. Gerald Pruitt was using the CC and ours as a weapon, selectively enforcing rules against people who'd opposed him and ignoring identical or worse violations by his allies. I started documenting everything. I took photos of Carl's garage. I photographed another Yes Voters RV parked on the street for 3 weeks straight, a clear violation that went unnoticed. I found a house on Mesquite Lane with Christmas lights still up in April, owned by Gerald's golf buddy. No fines, no letters, nothing. Then I did something that changed the entire trajectory of this fight. I filed a public records request for the HOA's financial statements. Desert Peak Community Services was required to maintain them. Trish, the woman who'd rather be anywhere else, sent me a stack of PDFs that I printed out at the library because my printer was out of ink. I'm not an accountant. I sell insurance part-time and bartend weekends. But even I could see that the numbers didn't add up. The HOA collected roughly $96,000 a year in dues. The landscaping contract was $31,000. Insurance was about $8,000. Management fees were $12,000. That left around $45,000 for maintenance reserves and miscellaneous expenses. But the miscellaneous line item had ballooned to over $60,000 in the last fiscal year. $60,000 in miscellaneous expenses for a 150-home subdivision with a community pool and some shared landscaping. Where was that money going? I brought this to the next board meeting. Gerald ran those meetings like a courtroom. Robert's Rules of Order. Timed public comments. 3 minutes per speaker. I stood up with my printed spreadsheets and my photos and I laid it out. I showed the selective enforcement. I showed Carl's garage. I showed the financial discrepancies. I asked calmly where $60,000 in miscellaneous expenses had gone. Gerald cut my microphone at 2 minutes and 47 seconds. He said my time was up. He said my claims were defamatory. He said if I continued to harass the board, the HOA would pursue legal action against me personally. Then he moved to adjourn the meeting. His two board allies, both yes voters on the gate, seconded and voted immediately. Meeting over. 19 people were still standing in that community room with their hands raised to speak. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on my back patio at 1 a.m. and thought about selling the house. Just giving up. Lily was asleep inside, and I thought about what it would mean to uproot her from her school, her friends, the only home she'd known since her dad left. I cried for about 10 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and started writing emails. Within a week, I had 23 homeowners signed onto a formal petition to recall the entire board. Arizona law requires a special meeting if 10% of homeowners petition for one. We had more than 15%. We hand-delivered the petition to Desert Peak Community Services with a copy to Gerald's home address. He ignored it. He literally pretended it didn't exist. No meeting was scheduled. No acknowledgement was sent. So we hired a lawyer. The Newlands attorney, a woman named Rachel Dominguez, who specialized in HOA disputes, agreed to represent the group at a reduced rate because her words, she'd been waiting for a case like this. Rachel sent a demand letter. Gerald's response through the HOA's attorney was that the petition was procedurally deficient because it used the wrong form. There was no required form. Rachel filed a complaint with the Arizona Department of Real Estate. She also subpoenaed the full financial records, not just the summaries I'd gotten, but the actual bank statements, invoices, and receipts. That's when everything fell apart for Gerald Pruitt. The bank statements showed direct transfers to Gerald's personal account totaling $41,000 over 2 years. The invoices for a pool resurfacing project were fabricated. The company listed didn't exist. The meeting minutes from 3 separate board sessions had been altered after the fact, changing vote tallies and removing motions that had been raised from the floor. Gerald hadn't just been a petty tyrant. He'd been stealing from us. From all of us. From the people who supported him and the people who didn't. He'd been writing himself checks from our dues and covering it up with fake paperwork. The recall election happened 6 weeks later, court-ordered, after Gerald tried to block it one final time. He was removed unanimously. Not 31-19. Unanimously. Even Carl Jessup voted to remove him. The new board, which I was asked to join and reluctantly agreed to, immediately waived all outstanding fines from Gerald's selective enforcement campaign. We filed a civil suit to recover the embezzled funds. Gerald's house went on the market 3 months later. Last I heard, he moved to Tucson. I still have the same mailbox. 3/4 of an inch too tall, painted in the wrong shade of black. Nobody said a word about it since. Lily asked me once what the whole thing was about, and I told her the truth, as simply as I could. Some people get a little bit of power, and they think it makes them important. It doesn't. It just makes them dangerous until someone decides to stop being afraid. I decided on a Tuesday, at 1 a.m, on my back patio, and I'd do it again.
Story 3.
I always thought the worst thing my mother-in-law could do was rearrange my kitchen cabinets while I was at work. I was so wrong. My name is Cassie. I'm 34, married to a man named Derek, and we have a daughter, Poppy, who had just turned 8 months old when this whole thing detonated. We live about 20 minutes from Derek's parents in Fairfield County, Connecticut. close enough for his mother Judith to drop by unannounced, which she did, with the regularity of a utility bill and about as much warmth. Judith never liked me. She made that clear from the moment Derek brought me home. I wasn't from the right family. I didn't go to the right schools. My parents ran a dry cleaning business in Bridgeport, and to Judith that was practically a criminal record. She wanted Derek to marry a girl from their country club circle, someone with a hyphenated last name and a trust fund, and the good sense to let Judith run her life. Instead, he married me. And Judith never forgave either of us for it. But what she did last October, that crossed a line I didn't even know existed. It started as most of Judith's schemes did, with a visit she framed as generosity. She came over on a Tuesday afternoon with a casserole I didn't ask for, and spent 2 hours holding Poppy while making pointed comments about how the baby's eyes were so dark compared to Derek's. Derek has blue eyes. Poppy has brown. I have brown eyes. That's how genetics works. But Judith had apparently been doing her own research, the kind you do at 2 a.m. on forums where bitter people validate each other's worst impulses. I didn't know it at the time, but during that visit while I was in the bathroom, Judith took Poppy's pacifier right out of the diaper bag. Just slipped it into a Ziploc she'd brought with her. She'd already ordered one of those home DNA ancestry kits, the kind that also does paternity matching if you add a second sample. She swabbed herself, swabbed the pacifier, and mailed the whole thing off. Her plan, as she later admitted, was simple. She wanted to prove that Poppy wasn't Derek's biological child. She wanted proof that I had cheated, that I had trapped her son, that I was exactly the kind of woman she'd always warned him about. She wanted to hand him the results at Thanksgiving in front of the whole family and watch my life fall apart over cranberry sauce and stuffing. She got results all right. But they didn't say what she expected. The kit confirmed that Poppy was biologically related to Judith. Grandmother and granddaughter, clear match. But there was something else in the results. Something Judith hadn't anticipated. The ancestry breakdown. Poppy's paternal line showed a significant percentage of Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. Judith's family is Irish Catholic. Her husband Gerald claimed pure English stock going back to the Mayflower. He had a framed family tree in his study. He'd bored us all with it at every holiday for 20 years. Judith stared at those results for a week. She ran them again through the kit company's database. She cross-referenced. She called the company's support line and argued with a 22-year-old lab tech. The results didn't change. And then she did something that I still can't fully comprehend. She dug deeper. She upgraded to the full relative matching service. That's when the real bomb went off. Gerald had a match in the system. A half-sibling. A woman named Ruth Abelman, 61 years old, living in Queens. Gerald's biological father, it turned out, was not the Connecticut WASP patriarch whose name was on the family tree. His biological father was a man named Solomon Katz, who had a brief affair with Gerald's mother in 1958 and never knew he'd fathered a child. Gerald's mother had taken that secret to her grave. Gerald himself apparently had no idea. Or maybe he did. That part's still unclear. Now, a normal person, a decent person, would have sat with this information privately. Would have maybe talked to Gerald alone gently. Would have recognized that this was a painful, complicated revelation that deserved care and discretion. But Judith is not a normal person. Judith is a woman who had spent a month building a Thanksgiving ambush designed to destroy her daughter-in-law's marriage in front of 15 family members. And when her ammunition changed shape, she didn't stand down. She just picked a different target. Thanksgiving Day. The house smelled like sage and roasting turkey. Gerald was in his usual chair, scotch in hand, holding court about some golf tournament. Derek's sister Lauren was there with her husband. Derek's uncle, Phil, and Aunt Margot had driven up from New Jersey. I was in the kitchen mashing potatoes and trying to survive another holiday in that house. Judith waited until everyone was seated. She waited until Gerald had said grace, the same grace he said every year, thanking God for their family's heritage and blessings. And then before anyone picked up a fork, she stood up. I have something to share with the family, she said. Her voice was calm, rehearsed. She pulled a manila envelope from under her chair. I remember thinking, oh God, this is about me. My stomach dropped. I looked at Derek, and he looked confused. I took it upon myself to do some genetic testing, Judith said. I had concerns about Poppy's parentage. Derek's face went red. Mom, what the hell? Let me finish. She held up her hand. The results confirm that Poppy is indeed your daughter, Derek. Congratulations. She didn't look at me. But they also revealed something else. She turned to Gerald. And the room went silent in a way I've never experienced before. Not quiet, but vacuum sealed. Like all the air had been sucked out. Gerald, she said, your mother lied to you. Your father was not Richard Whitfield. Your biological father was a Jewish man from Brooklyn named Solomon Katz. You have a half-sister named Ruth. She's alive. She lives in Queens. Gerald didn't move. He sat there with his scotch glass frozen halfway to his mouth, and his face did something I'll never forget. It crumbled. Not dramatically. It just sort of collapsed inward like a building being demolished in slow motion. That's not possible, he whispered. It's all here. Judith slid the papers across the table right through the gravy boat. Your entire identity, Gerald, a lie. Uncle Phil stood up. Lauren started crying. Derek grabbed my hand under the table so hard it hurt. And Gerald, 72-year-old Gerald, who had built his entire personality around his family name, his lineage, his place in the social hierarchy of coastal Connecticut, Gerald looked at his wife and said the most devastating thing I've ever heard one spouse say to another. You did this to humiliate me. You went behind everyone's back to prove Cassie was a whore, and when that didn't work, you just aimed the gun at me instead. Judith's composure cracked for the first time. I was trying to protect this family. You were trying to destroy it, Gerald slammed his hand on the table. Glasses rattled. The turkey platter jumped. 40 years, Judith. 40 years I've been married to you, and this is what you do with a secret about my dead mother. You announce it over Thanksgiving dinner like it's a goddamn party trick. He stood up, dropped his napkin on his plate, and walked out of the dining room. We heard the front door open and close. Then his car started in the driveway. And then it was quiet again. Judith sat back down slowly. She looked around the table like she expected someone to thank her. No one did. Derek and I left within the hour. Lauren wouldn't speak to her mother. Uncle Phil called Judith a word I won't repeat and drove back to New Jersey before dessert. Gerald didn't come home that night. Or the next. He checked into a hotel and hired a divorce attorney by Monday morning. He eventually reached out to Ruth Abelman. They met for coffee in January. I hear they talk regularly now. He says it's the one good thing that came out of the whole disaster. Judith lives alone in that big house now. She calls Derek every week, and every week he lets it go to voicemail. She sent Poppy a birthday card in March. Derek threw it away unopened. I almost felt bad about that. Almost. She wanted to blow up my family. She blew up her own instead. And Poppy's fine. She's walking now, getting into everything, laughing at the dog. She has no idea that her grandmother once stole her pacifier to try to prove she was illegitimate. I hope she never finds out. But if she does, I'll tell her the truth that the people most obsessed with bloodlines and purity and who belongs where are usually the ones with the most to hide. Every single time.
Story 4.
I haven't slept more than 3 consecutive hours in 11 months. That's not an exaggeration. That's not the kind of thing tired moms say to get sympathy at the pediatrician's office. I mean it literally. 11 months of fractured sleep, of waking to my daughter, screaming like something was tearing her apart from the inside. And everyone, my husband, my doctor, my mother-in-law kept telling me it was normal. Toddlers have nightmares. Toddlers go through phases. But here's the thing about being a mother running on fumes. Your logic gets foggy, sure. But your instincts get sharper. Almost animal. And my instincts were screaming that something was wrong. I just didn't know the something was a person I was supposed to trust. My daughter Lily turned 2 in March. She was a happy baby, the kind strangers smile at in grocery stores. Easygoing. Curious. Laughed at everything. But somewhere around last fall, she started changing. Not dramatically at first. She'd cling to me a little harder at bedtime. Then she started crying when I'd leave the room. Then came the night terrors, full body, rigid eyes, open screaming that no amount of holding could fix. My husband Marcus said it was developmental. His mother Diane said I was coddling her. And I was too exhausted to argue with either of them. Diane had been babysitting every Thursday since Lily was 4 months old. It was her idea, pitched as a gift. You need a break, sweetheart. Let me take my grandbaby for the day. And at first, it was a gift. I'd sleep. I'd clean the house without a toddler on my hip. I'd feel human again for 6 hours. But I started noticing things. Small things. My filing cabinet slightly ajar when I came home. A drawer in my bedroom that I always kept locked sitting unlocked. Papers on my desk rearranged in ways I couldn't quite prove, but could feel. And Lily. Lily was always different on Thursday nights. Quieter. Clingy in a way that felt like fear, not affection. She'd grab my shirt and whisper no-go over and over until she fell asleep. I told Marcus. He said I was sleep-deprived and paranoid. He said his mother had raised 3 kids and had never so much as raised her voice. He said I needed to see a therapist, not accuse his family. So I stopped talking to Marcus about it. And I bought a nanny cam. 2 of them, actually. One disguised as a stuffed elephant on Lily's bookshelf. One built into a digital clock I placed on the kitchen counter. I set them up on a Wednesday night while Marcus was at a work dinner and Diane was blissfully unaware. The next morning, Thursday, I kissed Lily goodbye, told Diane there were snacks in the fridge, and drove to a coffee shop 6 minutes away. I sat in a parking lot with my laptop open and the live feed running. And I watched. For the first hour, everything was normal. Diane played with Lily, read her a book, made her lunch. I almost felt guilty. Almost closed the laptop and drove to Target like I usually did. Then, Lily went down for her nap. The second Diane heard the white noise machine click on through the monitor, she moved. Not casually, purposefully. She went straight to our bedroom, pulled a key from her purse, a key I had never given her, and opened my filing cabinet. She pulled out our tax returns, our bank statements, Marcus's pay stubs, my medical records from when I was treated for postpartum anxiety. She photographed every single page with her phone. Methodically. Front and back. She even adjusted the lighting on one document to get a clearer shot. This was not the first time she had done this. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't look over her shoulder. She moved like someone executing a routine. Then she put everything back. Locked the cabinet. Returned the key to her purse. And went to check on Lily. What happened next is the part I still can't talk about without my chest tightening. Lily was awake. Sitting up in her crib, quiet, watching the door. Diane leaned over the railing and started talking to her in this low, steady voice. Almost soothing. Almost sweet. She said, "Mommy and Daddy are going to go away soon, sweetheart. But Grandma's going to take care of you. Grandma's always going to be here. You don't need to be scared. They're going to go away, but Grandma won't. My 2-year-old daughter stared up at her grandmother and started to cry. Not a tantrum cry. A terrified, silent cry. The kind where the mouth opens but nothing comes out at first. And Diane picked her up and shushed her and said, "See, this is why you need Grandma. Mommy can't help you. Mommy's sick." I sat in that parking lot and I shook so hard I couldn't hold my coffee. I watched the screen blur through tears I didn't even realize were falling. I drove home. I don't remember the drive. I walked through the front door and Diane looked up from the couch where she was holding my daughter and she smiled at me. That same warm grandmother smile. And I smiled back. Because I knew something she didn't know. I knew I had every second of it recorded in high definition with a timestamp. I let 3 more Thursdays pass. I know that sounds insane. I know people will judge me for that. But I needed more than one recording. I needed a pattern. I needed evidence that no judge, no lawyer, no husband could dismiss as a one-time lapse in judgment. And every Thursday, Diane delivered. She searched different drawers. She found and photographed our life insurance policy. She found the password notebook I kept in my nightstand, the one with our bank logins. She whispered the same poison into my daughter's ear every single time. Variations on a theme. Mommy's going away. Daddy doesn't love you enough. Only Grandma is safe. On the 3rd Thursday, she brought a folder from her own purse and I watched her compare our financial documents to something she'd already printed out. I zoomed in on the feed later. They were custody petition templates, downloaded from a Colorado family law website, with blanks already filled in. She was building a case. She was documenting our finances, my mental health history, our schedules. She was psychologically conditioning my toddler to be afraid of her own parents so that when the time came when she filed, Lily would cling to her in front of a social worker and it would look like proof. I had 72 hours of footage. I called a family attorney before I told Marcus. The attorney watched 20 minutes of the recordings, went quiet, and then said, "This is one of the most calculated things I've seen in 15 years of practice." She told me to file for a restraining order. She told me to change every lock in the house. She told me to document Lily's behavioral changes with our pediatrician immediately. Then she asked if my husband was involved. I said no. I said he'd never believe it. She looked at me and said, "He's going to have to." I showed Marcus the footage on a Sunday night after Lily was asleep. I didn't say anything first. I just opened the laptop, pressed play, and sat next to him. He watched his mother unlock our filing cabinet with a key she'd apparently copied. He watched her photograph our tax returns. He watched her lean over our daughter's crib and tell a 2-year-old that her parents were going to abandon her. And then he closed the laptop. Gently. Like it was something fragile. And he said, "There has to be a context we're missing." I felt something break inside me that wasn't sadness. It was the last thread of patience I had been holding on to for 11 months of sleepless nights and gaslighting and watching my daughter deteriorate. I said, "Marcus, your mother is stealing our financial information and terrorizing our child to build a custody case against us. There is no missing context." He said I was overreacting. He said his mother probably just wanted to help with our finances. He said maybe she was just reassuring Lily in a clumsy way. I said, "She has custody petition templates in her purse, Marcus, with our names on them." He went quiet for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called his mother. Right there. In front of me. And he told her what I'd found. Diane didn't deny it. That's the part that still haunts me. She didn't even try. She said, and I will never forget these words, "I'm doing what's best for that child because neither of you are capable." She said, "My anxiety made me an unfit mother." She said Marcus was too passive to protect his own daughter. She said she'd been consulting with an attorney for 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of Thursdays. Of smiling at me while she dismantled my family from the inside. Marcus hung up the phone and didn't speak to me for 2 days. The restraining order was granted on a Tuesday. Diane is prohibited from contacting Lily or coming within 500 feet of our home. Her copied key was confiscated. Our locks were changed. Our financial accounts were frozen and reopened with new credentials. Lily started seeing a child psychologist who specializes in emotional manipulation in young children. After 3 sessions, the psychologist told me that what Diane had done was a textbook form of psychological abuse, deliberately destabilizing a child's attachment to their parents to create dependency on the abuser. My daughter wasn't having night terrors because of a developmental phase. She was having them because her grandmother was systematically teaching her that her parents were going to disappear. Marcus and I are still married. But something between us is broken in a way I don't know how to fix. He goes through the motions. He agreed to the restraining order. He stopped speaking to his mother. But he looks at me sometimes like I'm the one who destroyed something. Like I'm the one who detonated the bomb instead of the person who found it before it went off. His brother called me last week and said I'd torn their family apart. His father sent a letter saying Diane meant well. Lily sleeps through the night now. 5 straight hours last Tuesday. She woke up, looked at me and said, "Mama, here?" Not a question. A statement. Like she was confirming something she'd been afraid to believe. I held her so tight she squirmed. And I whispered back, "Mama's here. Mama's not going anywhere. I don't regret the cameras. I don't regret the restraining order. I don't regret any of it. But I will never forgive myself for every Thursday I handed my daughter to that woman and drove away. And I will never stop wondering how close she came to pulling it off."
Story 5.
I spent 41 years surveying land in East Tennessee. 41 years walking property lines, driving stakes, reading the earth like a book most people don't even know exists. So when I tell you I know where my property ends and my neighbor's begins, I need you to understand that's not an opinion. That's a fact, carved into the bedrock of everything I am. I retired in 2021. Bought a nice 3-acre parcel outside Greeneville, up against the foothills. Quiet place. Old hardwoods, a creek that runs year-round, a view of the Smokies from my back porch that makes you forget the world's gone sideways. My wife Carol, she passed 2 years before, and I wanted somewhere I could just be still. Just exist for a while, without anyone needing anything from me. I got about 14 months of that peace. Then Trent Ballard moved in next door. Now Ballard wasn't some regular guy buying a house. He was a developer. Had his fingers in half the residential projects in Greene County. Built subdivisions, flipped commercial lots, sat on the planning commission for 6 years before term limits finally pushed him out. The kind of man who shakes your hand while his other hand is in your back pocket. He bought the adjacent property in March of 2022 and immediately started renovating. Tore out the old landscaping, brought in heavy equipment, started grading the backyard. I didn't think much of it at first. Man's got a right to improve his own land. But then one morning in June, I walked my property line the way I always do, old habits, and I stopped dead. The chain link fence that had separated our properties for at least 20 years had been pulled up and reset. Not dramatically. Not obviously. Just 8 feet further onto my side. 8 feet doesn't sound like much until you realize it runs 160 feet along the back boundary. That's nearly 1,300 square feet of my land. And right there, on what was now supposedly his side, concrete forms were already going in for a pool deck. I stood there for a long time, just staring at it, feeling something cold settle in my chest. I went to talk to him first. I'm not unreasonable. I walked over, knocked on his door, told him calmly that his fence was off the mark. He smiled at me the way you smile at a confused old dog. Told me I must be mistaken. Said he'd had the property surveyed before closing and everything was exactly where it should be. Then he offered me a beer like that was going to make it all go away. I declined the beer. I went home and pulled out my own copy of the plat I'd reviewed before I bought my place. Clear as day, the boundary was where I knew it was. 8 feet from where his new fence sat. So the next morning I drove to the Greene County Register of Deeds to pull the original plat records. They weren't there. The clerk, a young woman who seemed genuinely confused, told me the file for my parcel's subdivision plat had been checked out and never returned. No record of who took it, no sign-out sheet, just gone. I asked about the digital backup. She said the system had been migrated 2 years prior and some older records hadn't transferred correctly. Now a normal person might have panicked, might have hired a lawyer right then and started throwing money at the problem. But I'm not a normal person. I'm a surveyor. And a surveyor doesn't panic when records go missing. A surveyor goes deeper. I started with the state archives in Nashville. Took me a full day's drive and 3 hours in a basement that smelled like mildew and forgotten history. But I found the original 1,987 subdivision plat on microfilm. Clear, legible, and absolutely unambiguous about where my property line fell. I had certified copies made. Then I went further back. Found the 1,923 deed that described the original parcel before subdivision, referencing iron pins and old oak trees, 2 of which were still standing on my land. I cross-referenced that with USGS topographic surveys from the 1940s. Every single source agreed. While I was building my paper trail, Ballard's pool deck was going up fast. Concrete poured pavers, laid a beautiful stone-capped retaining wall. $60,000 of construction, easy. All of it sitting on my dirt. I bought a drone. Taught myself to fly it in an afternoon. I'm old, not stupid. Started documenting everything from the air. Timestamp footage showing the original fence post holes still visible in the grass. The new fence line, the construction progress. I flew that drone every 3 days for 2 months. Built a visual record that would make a forensic analyst weep with joy. Then I did something that changed everything. I pulled Ballard's building permits. His pool deck permit referenced a site plan. That site plan showed the property boundary exactly where his new fence was, 8 feet onto my land. The site plan had been approved by the county zoning office, signed off by a man named Dale Hutchins, who happened to be the current zoning administrator and who also happened to have been Ballard's business partner on a strip mall development in 2018. I sat at my kitchen table that night with all of it spread out in front of me. The certified plats, the century-old deeds, the drone footage, the permit records, the business connection between Ballard and Hutchins. And I felt something I hadn't felt since Carol died. Purpose. I hired an attorney. Not a local one, I went to Knoxville. Found a woman named Patricia Reeves who specialized in property disputes and had a reputation for being absolutely merciless in court. I showed her everything. She looked at it for about 20 minutes, then looked up at me and said, "Mr. Hardin, this man is going to wish he'd never heard your name." We filed suit in Chancery Court. Trespass, encroachment, and fraudulent alteration of public records. But Patricia added something I hadn't even considered. She invoked Tennessee Code Annotated 282101, a provision in the adverse possession statute that most people read as protecting long-term possessors. She flipped it. Used it to establish that because I had maintained continuous documented use of that strip of land for over 2 years before the fence was moved, mowing it, walking it, keeping it clear, Ballard couldn't claim any possessory right, even if thought the records had supported him, which they didn't. Ballard hired a big firm out of Johnson City. They came in confident, filed a motion to dismiss, claiming the boundary dispute was a simple surveying disagreement. The judge denied the motion in 11 minutes. Discovery was where it got ugly. Patricia subpoenaed Ballard's entire permit history going back 10 years. Every project, every approval, every interaction with the zoning board. What came out was a pattern so brazen it made the judge visibly angry. Ballard had received expedited approvals on 7 different projects, all signed off by Hutchins. 2 of those projects had boundary descriptions that didn't match county records. One had a setback variance granted without the required public hearing. The missing plat from the Register of Deeds digital access logs showed that someone using a county employee login had accessed that file's record 4 days before it disappeared. The login belonged to a clerk in Hutchins' office. In open court, under oath, Hutchins tried to claim he didn't recall approving Ballard's site plan. Patricia put the signed document in front of him. Then she put his business partnership records next to it. Then she played my drone footage showing the original fence post holes measured and annotated, proving the line had been moved. Hutchins looked at Ballard across the courtroom. Ballard wouldn't look back. The judge ruled in my favor on every count. Full restoration of the property line. And because Ballard had knowingly built a permanent structure on land he knew wasn't his using permits, he knew were fraudulently obtained, the court ordered complete demolition of the pool deck at his expense. Every paver, every footing, every inch of that $60,000 monument to arrogance torn out and hauled away. He also referred the matter to the district attorney's office for investigation into the missing public records. Last I heard, Hutchins resigned quietly. Ballard's development company lost 2 pending project approvals while the investigation played out. I watched them demolish the deck on a Tuesday morning in October. Stood on my porch with a cup of coffee. Didn't gloat. Didn't wave. Just watched. Ballard put his house on the market 3 weeks later. People asked me if it was worth it. The months of work, the legal fees, the stress. And I tell them the same thing every time. A man who won't defend his boundaries doesn't have any. Carol knew that about me. It's why she married me. And it's why every evening I still walk my property line. Every single inch of it.
Story 6.
I remember the exact moment the floor fell out from under my life. It was a Tuesday. The coffee tasted like ash in my mouth. Chloe sat across from me at our small kitchen table sunlight, catching the gold flecks in her eyes. She wasn't crying. She wasn't wringing her hands. She was calm, like someone announcing a change in the weather. I slept with someone, she said. The spoon I was stirring my coffee with clattered against the ceramic mug. A sharp, ugly sound in the quiet morning. I waited for the rest. The apology. The gut-wrenching, tear-filled explanation. The mistake. It never came. His name is Julian, she continued, her voice even. It's been going on for a few months. And I don't want it to stop. I couldn't form words. My entire nervous system had just been unplugged. All I could manage was a weak, strangled what? I love you, Ethan. I do, she said, and the words felt like a slap. But you don't fulfill all of my needs. Julian does in other ways. And I think this is the evolution of our marriage. We should have an open relationship. An open relationship. She said it like she was suggesting we try a new restaurant. like it was a reasonable, logical next step after 7 years of what I thought was a happy monogamous marriage. "You cheated on me," I said, the words finally breaking free. "You cheated and now you want my permission to keep doing it." "It's not cheating if we both agree to the new terms," she said, a hint of impatience in her voice. "This is about honesty. I'm being honest with you." The rage came, then hot and blinding. I stood up so fast my chair screeched back against the tile. "Get out." "Ethan, be reasonable." "Get out." She left. And I was left standing in the ruins of my kitchen, my marriage, my entire world. My first call after I managed to stop shaking was to her parents, Carol and Richard. They'd always been more like friends to me. We golfed, we had barbecues. They were my family. I drove over there on autopilot, my mind a blank, static hum. I found them in their sunroom reading the paper like it was any other Tuesday. I spilled the whole story, the words tumbling out of me in a broken, desperate flood. I expected shock. I expected outrage on my behalf. I got pity. Carol put her teacup down with a delicate click. "Oh, Ethan," she sighed. "We were afraid of this." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid your daughter would blow up our marriage." Richard folded his newspaper and set it aside. "Afraid you wouldn't be able to handle it when she finally told you." I stared at him. "Handle what?" "The affair." "Her needs," Ethan Carroll said, her voice dripping with a kind of condescending sympathy I was starting to hate. "Chloe is a passionate woman. She has a large capacity for love. It's not fair to expect one person to be everything." My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. "What the hell are you talking about? She cheated on me." Richard leaned forward, lacing his fingers together. "Son, words like cheating are so restrictive. Carol and I came to an understanding years ago. We have our own arrangements. It keeps things fresh. Honest." I felt the air leave my lungs. I was looking at two strangers. These people who I'd shared holidays with, who I'd called mom and dad, were telling me that infidelity was just a healthy hobby. "So you're fine with this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You're on her side." "There are no sides," Ethan Carroll said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "There's just the path forward. Chloe is offering you a chance to evolve with her. To grow. Most men would be thrilled. She's not leaving you, she's just expanding your life together." I felt sick. I was being gaslit in surround sound. They were a team, a united front of warped logic and free love bullshit. They weren't my allies. They were her enablers. I can't do that, I stammered, shaking my head. A marriage is between two people. That's it. That's the deal. That's when Carol's expression hardened. The soft, pitying mask fell away, revealing something cold and sharp underneath. "Then maybe the problem isn't the deal," she said, her voice low and cutting. "Maybe the problem is that you're simply not enough for her." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? Did you ever stop to think why she might need to find fulfillment elsewhere?" She pressed on her eyes like chips of ice. "Did you ever think that maybe you are inadequate, that you can't give her what a woman like her truly needs, physically? Emotionally? You're asking her to starve just because you can only offer her breadcrumbs." Richard just sat there nodding slowly like his wife was delivering a profound, undeniable truth. "This isn't about love, Ethan," she finished the final nail in my coffin. "This is about your selfish pride. You'd rather see her unhappy and chained to your limitations than see her fulfilled. You're being selfish. And weak." I couldn't breathe. Inadequate. The word echoed in the sudden ringing silence of the room. It was a poisoned dart, and it had found its mark. I was being called a failure as a man by my wife's mother. And her father was co-signing it. I stood up, my legs trembling. There was nothing left to say. I didn't defend myself. I didn't scream. I just turned and walked out their judgment, following me like a shadow. I drove for an hour, maybe more. I don't know where I went. The streets blurred into a meaningless smear of light and color. I ended up parked in front of my own empty house. Chloe's car was gone. The silence inside was deafening. I was completely, utterly alone. My wife had betrayed me. Her parents had crucified me. The people who were supposed to be my support system had ganged up and torn me to shreds, leaving me with nothing but that one ugly word rattling around in my skull. Asterisk. Inadequate. Asterisk. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, my vision blurry. Who was left? Who could I possibly turn to? My finger hovered over one name. Mom. I pressed the call button, my heart pounding, a desperate rhythm against my ribs. I just needed to hear a friendly voice. I needed someone, just one person, to be on my side. To tell me I wasn't crazy. To tell me I wasn't the villain in my own tragedy. The phone rang once. Twice. Hello, her voice came through the speaker, warm and familiar. A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. I opened my mouth to speak, to pour out the whole nightmare. Mom, I choked out. It's me. I need you. The story I started to tell her came out in jagged pieces, a confused, rambling mess. But she listened. She made all the right noises, shocked, gasps, sympathetic murmurs. For a few precious minutes, I felt the ground firming up beneath my feet. They said what? She asked, her voice tight with what I thought was outrage on my behalf. Her own mother said you were inadequate. Yes. That was the word she used. Can you believe that? I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. It's insane. I'm being gaslit by my entire family. There was a pause. Longer than I expected. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. It was hesitant. Clinical. Well, Ethan, she started slowly. Let's not be dramatic. Are you sure you're not leaving anything out? Leaving what out? My blood ran cold. I mean, Chloe has always been a very vibrant woman. Lots of energy. What does that have to do with anything, Mom? Are you sure you've been keeping her happy? She asked. And the question landed like a stone in my gut. In all aspects of your marriage, a woman has needs, honey. If she's not getting them met at home, I couldn't speak. The same script. It was the same goddamn script Carol had used. Mom, what are you saying? I whispered, dread coiling in my stomach. I'm just saying that maybe Carol has a point, she said, her voice gaining a defensive edge. Maybe before you throw away your marriage, you should look at your own part in this. If you are physically inadequate for a woman like Chloe, then what does she owe you really? The word hit me for the second time in one day, but this time it shattered me completely. Inadequate. From my own mother. The betrayal was so absolute, so profound, it stole the air from my lungs. You're siding with them, I said, my voice flat dead. I'm not taking sides, I'm being realistic, she snapped. You need to grow up and accept the situation. Don't be so selfish. I hung up. I didn't say another word. I just ended the call and let the phone drop from my numb fingers. I was an island. No, I was less than an island. I was just a man drowning in an endless, empty ocean. My thumb scrolled through my contacts on autopilot. There was one number left. One I hadn't called in 5 years. Dad. We hadn't spoken since he moved out of state after the divorce, our relationship reduced to a polite Christmas card once a year. I had nothing left to lose. I hit dial. he answered on the second ring. Ethan. His voice was gravelly surprised. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I told him everything from Chloe's confession to my mother's final gutting verdict. I laid it all out, a clinical report of my own destruction. I expected a grunt, and I told you so about marriage. Something dismissive. Instead, there was a long silence, and then a dry, humorless chuckle. Inadequate, huh? He said. She used that word. Yeah. Jesus. The hypocrisy is stunning even for her. What are you talking about? Ethan, why do you think we got divorced? He asked, his voice devoid of emotion. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Your mother was sleeping with her boss for the last 3 years of our marriage. When I found out, she told me I should be more open-minded. That I was suffocating her. That I wasn't enough of a man for her. The world tilted on its axis. Everything, her weirdly clinical advice, her defense of Chloe, the time-specific times, insulted, all clicked into place with a sickening snap. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about her justifying her own past. She cheated on you. Like it was her job, he said. So you can listen to a hypocrite, or you can get your head on straight. First thing tomorrow, you call a lawyer. You hear me. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt a flicker of something other than pain. It was anger. Cold, clear, and sharp as a shard of glass. I hear you, I said. Armed with an hour of brutal, no-nonsense legal advice and my father's quiet support over the phone, I agreed to meet Chloe at our house. I needed to do this one last time, face to face. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, looking bored. She didn't get up when I walked in. Have you come to your senses? She asked, not looking up. I've come to give you one last chance to save this marriage, Chloe, I said, my voice steadier than I thought it would be. You end it with Julian. We go to counseling. We try to fix what you broke. She finally looked at me, a smirk playing on her lips. No. No. The arrangement is not up for negotiation, she said, her voice dropping to a flat, cold monotone. Julian is a part of my life. The only thing to discuss is how you're going to accept that. So this is my final offer to you. You can get on board or you can watch from the sidelines. But it's happening, either way. There it was. The complete absence of love, of respect, of anything. I was just an obstacle to be managed. Okay, I said, nodding slowly. The cold anger inside me solidified into a single hard point of certainty. Then I want a divorce. She laughed. A short, ugly bark. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not giving you a divorce. We're not getting divorced just because you're having a tantrum. She stood up, brushing past me. You'll get over it. As she walked out the door, she paused. Oh, and I'm having the locks changed tomorrow? My lawyer said it's best if you find somewhere else to stay while you cool off. The final showdown came that night. I was at a cheap motel, a stack of legal documents on the bedside table when my phone rang. It was my mother. I just spoke to Chloe, she began. No, hello, just accusation. She told me you're trying to divorce her. After everything she's offered you, after everyone has tried to help you see reason, you're still being this stubborn. What is wrong with you, Ethan? The pressure that had been building inside me for days, the poison of every insult, every betrayal, finally found a release valve. I snapped. What's wrong with me? I laughed, a raw, ragged sound. You want to know what's wrong? I know, Mom. Dad told me everything. The line went dead silent. He told me why you two really split up. I pushed on my voice low and shaking with rage. He told me about your boss. So don't you dare preach to me about being open-minded. Don't you dare call me inadequate to justify your own pathetic history. You don't know what you're talking about, she whispered, her voice thin and panicked. Oh, I think I do, I spat. You're not defending Chloe, you're defending yourself. You just can't stand to look at a man who actually has some self-respect. You know what you are, Mom, you're a cheating whore. And you raised a daughter just like you. I hung up before she could respond, my heart hammering against my ribs. The cruelty of my own words tasted like acid, but underneath it was the clean, sharp taste of truth. A week later, I was living in the spare room of my father's small house 2 states away. It smelled like sawdust and old coffee. We didn't talk much about the past. We didn't need to. He'd just wordlessly hand me a beer when I got home from my temp job, and we'd watch the game in a comfortable silence. My phone was filled with venomous texts from Chloe and my mother, and a dozen missed calls from Carol. I'd read them, then delete them. They were ghosts from another life. My lawyer was preparing for a fight. Chloe was refusing to sign anything, claiming desertion. It was going to be long. It was going to be ugly. But one night, sitting on my dad's worn-out porch, I looked up at the unfamiliar stars and felt something I hadn't felt since that Tuesday morning. I felt solid. The world had been ripped out from under me, and I had been betrayed by the 2 women I should have been able to trust most. My life was a wreck. But it was my wreck. And for the first time, I felt like I was the one holding the hammer. I had my self-respect back. And I wasn't giving it up for anyone ever again.
Story 7.
The phone call came at 2 a.m., the kind that never brings good news. My mother's voice was a frayed wire. There's been an accident, Catherine. A car crash. I sat up in bed, the sheets tangled around my legs. Luke stirred beside me, his hand finding my back. Who, I asked, though I already knew? There were only 2 people my parents would call me about at this hour. It's Ava, she choked out. And Richard. They're both gone. Ava. My sister, Richard, my ex-fiancé, gone. The 2 words hung in the air, heavy and unreal. 5 years. 5 years of silence of building a wall so high and thick I convinced myself I couldn't feel anything on the other side. Now 2 words had sledgehammered it to dust. I was numb at the funeral. I watched them lower 2 caskets into the ground and felt nothing but a distant, hollow ache. The real gut punch came 2 days later, sitting on my parents' stiff floral sofa, the air thick with the scent of lilies and grief. The state has her, my father said, staring at his hands. They won't give her to us. My heart conditioned your mother's hip. They said, we're not suitable guardians. Her. Lily. The 5-year-old product of the affair that blew my life apart. The living, breathing proof of my sister's betrayal with the man I was supposed to marry. That's a shame, I said, my voice flat. I just wanted to go home. My mother leaned forward, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. Catherine, you have to take her! The air left my lungs. What? No, absolutely not. She's your niece, Mom pleaded, her voice rising. She's family, your own flesh and blood. She is the daughter of my sister and my ex-fiancé. I shot back the words like acid. She is a constant reminder of the worst thing that has ever happened to me. I can't. I won't. How can you be so cold? She whispered, tears welling up again. She's an orphan. A little girl who has lost everything. And whose fault is that? The question was out before I could stop it. My father flinched. My mother just stared at me, her expression hardening from grief into a familiar, disappointed glare. She is an innocent child, she said, her voice dangerously low. I know she is, I said, standing up. And she deserves a home with people who can look at her and not feel their insides twist into knots. That isn't me. It will never be me. I walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. When I got home, I collapsed into Luke's arms and told him everything. He just held me, stroking my hair, letting me cry out the years of pent-up anger and pain. He didn't say I told you so, even though he'd warned me this would happen. So what do we do? He asked gently when I'd finally calmed down. We do nothing, I said, my voice hoarse. There's nothing to do. I said no. Okay, he said, kissing my forehead. Then the answer is no. We're a team. End of story. Of course, it wasn't the end of the story. My parents, realizing they were hitting a brick wall with me, decided to go around it. Luke's phone rang a few days later while we were making dinner. He answered, his brow furrowing as he listened. Hello, Helen, he said, his tone polite but firm. He walked into the living room, but I could still hear his side of the conversation. I understand you're in a difficult position. No, I hear you. But Catherine has made her feelings clear. With all due respect, my job is to support my fiancée. Her well-being is my only priority. Yes, I understand the child is innocent. But this is Catherine's decision to make. No. We will not be changing our minds. Please don't call me about this again. He came back into the kitchen and slid his phone onto the counter. He looked at me, his expression a mixture of anger and sympathy. Your mom, I asked, though I knew. Yeah, he sighed. You're a reasonable man, Luke. You can make her see sense approach. She told me what a wonderful father I'd be. How taking in Lily would be the ultimate act of love and forgiveness. How it would heal the family. Jesus, I breathed, turning off the stove. My appetite was gone. I shut it down, Kat, he said, pulling me into a hug. I told her we are a united front and to stop trying to drive a wedge between us. I buried my face in his chest. Thank you. Always, he whispered into my hair. After that, there was silence. A full week of it. No calls, no texts, no unannounced visits. A part of me, the naive, hopeful part, thought maybe they'd finally heard me. Maybe they had accepted my decision and were looking for other solutions. We spent the week in a fragile peace, talking about our wedding plans, watching movies, trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy. It felt like we'd weathered the storm. Friday night, we ordered a pizza and cracked open a bottle of wine. We were curled up on the couch, laughing at some stupid reality show, and for the first time in weeks, I felt light. I felt safe. Then the doorbell rang. Luke glanced at me. We weren't expecting anyone. He got up to answer it, and I heard the lock click open. Helen David Luke's voice was tight with surprise. What are you guys doing here? I felt a cold dread wash over me. I stood up slowly as my parents walked into the living room. They weren't crying anymore. My father wouldn't meet my eye, but my mother... Her face was set in a look of chilling strategic resolve. This wasn't a plea. This was an ambush. Catherine, she said, her voice completely level. We need to talk. We've come up with a new angle on this whole situation. A better one I think you'll find very appealing. I stared at her, my wine glass still in my hand. Appealing. What are you talking about? Luke stood beside me, his arm a rigid line at his side. Helen David, this isn't a good time. My mother ignored him, her eyes locked on me. Think of the story, Catherine. The optics. A woman so horribly betrayed. Her sister and her fiancé gone in a tragic instant. And what does she do? She rises above it all. She takes in their orphan child. She becomes a saint. The word hit me like a physical blow. A saint, I repeated, my voice, a low, dangerous tremor. You want me to adopt a child as a PR move? It's not just a PR move, my father chimed in, finally looking at me. It's about how people see you. How they see our family. Forgiving. Strong. I don't give a damn how people see me, I hissed, setting my glass down on the coffee table with a sharp crack. This is a child's life, not a goddamn redemption arc for a TV movie. Are you out of your minds? My mother's carefully constructed composure shattered. The strategic resolve in her face curdled into pure, unadulterated fury. "Oh, forgive us for trying to find a way to appeal to your monumental selfishness," she snapped. "We thought, if we couldn't appeal to your heart, we might appeal to your vanity." "My vanity," I laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "This has nothing to do with vanity. This is about my life. The one I barely managed to stitch back together after Ava and Richard blew it to pieces." "So, you'll just let her rot in the system," my father boomed, stepping forward. "Is that it? Punishment for their sins falls on a 5-year-old girl." "This isn't my mess to clean up," I yelled, my hands clenched into fists. "It's not my fault you raised a daughter who would sleep with her sister's fiancé. It's not my fault they were careless. And it's not my fault the state thinks you're too old and sick to handle a child." My mother gasped her hand, flying to her chest as if I'd stabbed her. My father's face went purple with rage. "You heartless bitch," he spat the words heavy and wet. "That is your own flesh and blood you're talking about. Your niece." "David, that's enough," Luke said, stepping between us. My father barely glanced at him. "You stay out of this. This is family." "Family," I shot back. "This is what family does, tries to manipulate, to bully, to force someone into a life they don't want, a life that will destroy them." "Destroy you?" My mother's voice was venom. "What about Lily? Do you know what's happening to her right now? Do you even care? She's been in 4 different foster homes in 3 weeks. 4, Catherine. They said she cries all night and doesn't speak to anyone. She's being passed around like a parcel nobody wants. Because the only family she has left thinks taking her in would be too much of an inconvenience." The air went thin. 4 homes. The number felt like a punch to the gut, a calculated blow designed to cause maximum damage. I looked at her, searching for a flicker of a lie, but her eyes were hard and certain. "You don't get to do this," I whispered, shaking my head. "You don't get to lay this at my feet. The consequences of times their, times actions. The consequences of times your, times grief." "Our grief," she screeched, all pretense of control gone. "We can't even get custody of our own grandchild. We have to watch from the sidelines while she suffers, all because our only living daughter refuses to do the decent thing. Your refusal isn't just hurting Lily, it's killing us." She was crying now, but they weren't the soft, pleading tears from before. They were hard, angry tears, accusatory. She was pointing a finger, painting me as the villain who was compounding her tragedy. She had taken all the pain from the affair, from the crash, from their own inability to step up, and placed the entire crushing weight of it directly on my shoulders. "We're done here," Luke said, his voice leaving no room for argument. He put a firm hand on my back and another on my father's shoulder, steering him toward the door. "You need to leave. Now." My father didn't resist. He just stared at me, his face a mask of disgust. My mother let out a final ragged sob. "I don't know who you are anymore, Catherine," she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. "Ava may have broken your heart, but you have no heart left to break." Then they were gone. Luke shut the door and bolted it. The silence they left behind was deafening, heavier than all their shouting. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, the echo of my mother's words ringing in my ears. Asterisk. No heart left to break. Asterisk. I sank onto the couch, the pizza and wine on the table looking like relics from another lifetime. Luke sat beside me, wrapping his arms around me, pulling me against his chest. I didn't cry. I felt too hollow for tears. My parents hadn't just attacked me. They had surgically implanted a shard of doubt into the deepest part of my soul. They had held up a mirror, and in it I saw a monster. A cold, selfish woman who had let a child her own blood suffer in a broken system to protect her own peace. A woman who put her own comfort above the needs of a traumatized little girl. Luke held me tighter. "Don't listen to them, Kat. They were trying to hurt you." That's all it was. "But what if they're right?" I heard myself say, the voice small and foreign. 4 homes, Luke? What if that's true? She's just a little kid. She lost her parents. And I'm just leaving her there. All because I can't stand the sight of her. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. I was protecting myself. I was protecting my life with Luke. I was setting a boundary against the people who had hurt me more than anyone in the world. It had felt so right, so necessary. But was it right? Was protecting my own sanity worth the price of a child's stability? Does refusing to raise the living embodiment of my trauma make me a monster? Or does it just make me an asshole? I honestly didn't know anymore.
Story 8.
I'm pretty sure the smell of bacon-wrapped jalapeno poppers is the official scent of marital bliss. At least it was in my house. Every Sunday, our apartment transformed into a shrine to soccer, beer, and deep-fried everything. And I was its high priestess. Zoe, you're a culinary wizard, Dave said, his mouth full of the mini pulled pork slider I just handed him. Mark, you seriously married up? My husband, Mark, beamed from his throne on the sofa. He slung an arm around my waist and pulled me into his side, planting a greasy kiss on my temple. Tell me something I don't know, man. His friends Dave, Kevin, and Sam all laughed, raising their craft beer bottles in a toast. I just smiled, refilling a bowl with homemade guacamole. This was my domain. 2 years ago, I'd been a top performer in a cutthroat sales job, living on stress and lukewarm coffee. When Mark got a huge promotion, he'd floated the idea of me quitting. You could finally relax, he'd said. Make our house a real home. I jumped at the chance. And honestly, I loved it. I loved turning our generic apartment into a cozy nest. I loved seeing the genuine appreciation on Mark's face when he came home to a clean house and a hot meal. And I especially loved these Sundays when his friends would look at him with a kind of holy envy. I wasn't just a wife. I was times the times wife. The one who made it all look effortless. The one who proved he'd made it. Their praise was a warm blanket and I wrapped myself in it tightly. After the guys left high on victory and buffalo chicken dip, Mark helped me clear the last of the plates. You were amazing today, babe, he said, grabbing my hand and spinning me around in the kitchen. I laughed, swatting at his chest. I just made snacks. No, it's not just snacks. It's everything. The guys can't stop talking about how lucky I am. He leaned in his voice, dropping to a low murmur. And I have something for you. A little thank you. My heart did a little flutter. You don't have to get me anything. I know. But I wanted to. He grinned. It's for the next game night. Something special. A few days later, he came home with a rectangular box, elegantly wrapped in silver paper with a thick navy blue bow. It looked expensive. My mind raced. Was it a designer handbag? A beautiful cashmere sweater for the fall? Mark, it's gorgeous, I said, tracing the ribbon with my finger. What's the occasion? The occasion is you, he said, sitting on the edge of the sofa, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Go on. Open it. I carefully slid the ribbon off and tore away a corner of the paper. Inside was a plain white box. I lifted the lid, my breath catching in my throat. My fingers pushed aside layers of tissue paper, expecting to feel soft wool or smooth leather. Instead, they met something cold, slick, and squeaky. I pulled it out. The thing unfurled in my hands, a shocking slash of crimson. It was a dress, if you could even call it that. It was made of cheap, shiny red latex, the exact color of his favorite team, Manchester United. The neckline plunged to the navel, and the hemline wouldn't even graze the tops of my thighs. It smelled like a new set of tires. I stared at it, my brain short-circuiting. I looked from the plasticky horror in my hands to my husband's beaming face. He was practically vibrating with excitement. What do you think? He asked, his grin wide and expectant. I couldn't find my voice. I just kept staring at the dress. He laughed, a loud booming sound that felt entirely out of place in the sudden dead quiet of the room. "The guys are going to lose their minds," he said, his voice giddy. "Can you imagine their faces when you walk out with a tray of nachos wearing Times that asterisk?" My stomach turned. I finally managed to croak out a single question. "Is this a joke?" For a split second, the grin on his face faltered. A flicker of something else annoyance crossed his eyes. He'd been expecting me to laugh, to find this as hilarious as he did. Then just as quickly, the mask was back in place. He threw his head back and laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. Brittle. "Of course it's a joke, a prank. Oh man, you should see your face." I didn't smile. I let the dress drop back into the box as if it had burned my hands. "It's not funny, Mark." His smile vanished completely. "What come on, Zoe? Lighten up. It's just for a laugh. You want me to serve your friends?" In that, the words felt like stones in my mouth. I felt a hot flush of shame creep up my neck. I pictured Dave's eyes, Kevin's leering grin. The thought made me physically ill. "It's a costume, babe, like for Halloween," he insisted, his voice taking on a wheedling tone. "It would be hilarious." "No," I said, my voice flat and final. "It wouldn't." His face tightened. He stood up, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of pure frustration. "God, I forgot how uptight you can be sometimes. I spend money on a gift, I try to do something funny and fun, and you suck all the air out of the room." He saw the hurt on my face and quickly tried to backtrack. "Look, forget it. It was a dumb idea, okay, a joke that didn't land." He gestured vaguely at the box on the coffee table. "Just whatever. Forget about it." He walked out of the living room and into the kitchen, the sound of him yanking open the refrigerator door echoing in the tense silence. I was left alone, staring at the box. "A joke," he said. It was a joke. But the initial genuine delight I'd seen in his eyes, the pure unadulterated excitement at the thought of me serving his friends in that thing, told a very different story. The silver wrapping paper lay crumpled on the floor, looking like a discarded promise. I felt a cold dread settle deep in my gut, a feeling I hadn't had since my high-stress sales days. The feeling that I had misread the room completely. I tried to forget about it. For the rest of the week, I scrubbed and baked and organized with a frantic energy, trying to scour the memory of that slick red vinyl from my mind. Mark was magnanimous. He was sweet and apologetic, admitting the joke was in poor taste. We were fine. Everything was fine. Until Sunday morning. There it was laid out on my side of the dresser like a sacrificial offering. The red latex dress. It looked even cheaper in the morning light, its plastic sheen catching the sun in a way that felt obscene. Mark walked out of the bathroom toweling his hair, a bright, oblivious smile on his face. "Morning, beautiful. I can't wait for the guys to get here." He gestured to the dress with the towel. "And I really can't wait to see you in that." The air in the room went still and cold. I stared at him, my voice barely a whisper. "You said it was a joke." His smile didn't falter, but it changed. It became something brittle, something fixed. "It is a joke. That's the point. We're all in on it." "I'm not in on it," I said, my voice gaining a little strength. "And I'm not wearing it." His demeanor snapped. The cheerful husband from 30 seconds ago vanished, replaced by a sullen stranger. He tossed the damp towel onto our white duvet. "For Christ's sake, Zoe. Are you going to be like this all day? It's a piece of fabric." "It's not fabric, Mark. It's a fetish costume." He let out a sharp, exasperated laugh. "Oh my God, listen to yourself. You're so fucking uptight." "It's a laugh. Kevin's wife dressed up as a sexy referee last year. Nobody died." "That's different, and you know it." "This is..." I couldn't even say it. Humiliating. Degrading. Not funny. At times is times funny, he hissed, his voice dropping low and sharp. It's funny to everyone but you. Why do you always have to ruin things? Just play along. Don't be an idiot. Asterisk. Idiot asterisk. The word hung in the air between us, ugly and final. It was terrifyingly clear. He'd never intended for this to be a joke. The joke was just his escape hatch in case I said no. And now that I had the real, Mark was coming out. The one who saw my refusal not as a boundary, but as a personal betrayal. No, I said. The word was small, but it felt like a concrete pillar in my throat. His face contorted with a mix of fury and disbelief. Fine. Whatever. Be a boring prude. See if I care. He snatched a t-shirt from a drawer and yanked it over his head, not looking at me again before he stormed out of the bedroom. The game was a special kind of hell. I put on my usual jeans and a simple sweater. I served the bacon-wrapped jalapeno poppers and the 7-layer dip. I smiled and refilled beer bottles. But the warmth was gone. A sheet of ice had formed between Mark and me, and his friends could feel the chill. Everything okay, you two? Dave asked during a commercial break, noticing that Mark hadn't touched me once. Mark forced a laugh. Yeah, man, all good. Zoe's just a little sensitive today. He glanced at me, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Guess she doesn't have the team spirit she used to. I felt my cheeks burn. The praise that had once been my validation now felt like a spotlight on my failure. I wasn't the perfect hostess today. I was the uptight wife who couldn't take a joke. I saw them exchange glances. In their eyes, I was no longer the culinary wizard, the wife he was lucky to have. I was the ball and chain. The fun killer. The mask I wore all afternoon began to crack. While they were roaring at the TV, I stood in the kitchen staring at the dirty dishes piling up in the sink. This whole life I'd built this carefully curated image of domestic bliss was a sham. I hadn't made a home. I'd built a stage. A stage for Mark to perform his success with me as his most valuable prop. The perfect wife. The perfect hostess. The girl who left her own ambitions behind to fluff his pillows and his ego. The latex dress wasn't a joke. It was an upgrade. A new shinier prop for him to show off. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as the high-gloss finish on his successful life. And my financial dependence, which I had once seen as a luxury, was actually the leash he held in his hand. He'd gifted me this comfortable cage, and I had decorated it myself, foolishly believing I was free. After the guys left, the silence was deafening. Mark didn't help me clean. He sat on the sofa, scrolling through his phone, radiating a cold, punishing anger. I moved around him, clearing empty bottles and crumpled napkins, feeling like a ghost in my own home. My home. The one I'd quit my job for. The one I couldn't afford on my own. That realization hit me like a punch to the gut. It knocked the air from my lungs and left me dizzy with a terrifying clarity. This wasn't about a dress anymore. It was about survival. I finished loading the dishwasher and walked past him into our home office, the room that had become my craft corner filled with half-finished knitting projects and scrapbooks. I pushed aside a basket of yarn and opened my laptop, blowing a thin layer of dust off the keyboard. The battery was dead. I plugged it in, and while it whirred back to life, I stared at my reflection in the dark screen. The face staring back at me wasn't the happy, relaxed homemaker I'd tried so hard to be. It was the face of a fighter. A top performer. A woman who had once closed 6-figure deals without breaking a sweat. I'd let her go dormant. I'd let Mark convince me that her ambition and drive were character flaws, that I was better off being soft and accommodating. I'd traded my power for his approval. Never again. The screen lit up. I ignored the old vacation photos that formed the desktop background. I opened a web browser, my fingers flying across the keys with a purpose I hadn't felt in 2 years. I logged into my LinkedIn profile, the password coming back to me instantly. I scrolled through messages I'd ignored for months, my eyes landing on a name. Michael Shaw. My old boss. My profile picture was 2 years old. In it, I was wearing a sharp blazer, my smile confident and professional. I looked like a stranger. I clicked Edit Profile, my heart hammering against my ribs. Not with fear, but with a cold, thrilling resolve. Mark wanted me to be a joke, fine. But I was about to write my own punchline.
Story 9.
When Mark and I first told his parents we were pregnant, I swear his mother Carol levitated. His father Frank, who normally showed all the emotion of a granite countertop, actually cracked a smile. We were in their beige on beige living room, the one with the pristine white carpet no one was allowed to walk on with shoes. A boy Carol clapped her bracelets, jangling. "Oh, Frank, our first grandson, a little Peter." I felt Mark's hand tighten on my knee. We had discussed this extensively. Actually, I started trying to keep my voice light. We were thinking about other names. Frank's smile vanished. There are no other names. The firstborn son in this family is always Peter. 7 generations, Jennifer. He said it like he was citing scripture. I know, and we respect that Mark jumped in, ever the diplomat. But Peter is difficult for Jen's family? I took a deep breath and told them the story I had told Mark on our third date. About my Uncle Peter, my mom's vibrant, life-of-the-party younger brother. How he died in a car accident when he was just 19. How my grandmother found him. How on her deathbed, years later, she made my mother promise that no one in our family would ever be named Peter again, that she couldn't bear to hear that name attached to anyone but her lost son. My grandmother is still alive, I finished softly. It would break her heart. To my shock, Carol's face softened. She reached across the coffee table and patted my hand. "Oh, you poor dear." "Of course. Family is family. We'll make an exception. This one time..." Frank just grunted, but he didn't argue. I felt a tidal wave of relief. They understood. For 6 months they did. They bought us a crib, sent us articles on sleep training, and called Mark every other day for belly updates. The name wasn't mentioned again. We settled on Leo. Strong, simple, and ours. Then at 34 weeks pregnant, I got the call. My grandmother had passed away in her sleep. Peaceful, the doctor said. I was devastated. She was the last of my grandparents, the anchor of my family. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and hushed condolences. Carol and Frank came. They hugged me, brought a casserole, and said all the right things. 2 days later, Carol called. "Just checking in, sweetie," she said. "Now, I know this is a difficult time, but Frank and I were talking about the baby's name." My stomach went cold. "What about it?" "Well, with your grandmother gone, God rest her soul, there's really no reason not to honor our family's tradition now, is there? The obligation is lifted." I was speechless. She was using my grandmother's death as a loophole. Carol, the promise to my grandmother doesn't die with her. The pain of what happened to my uncle doesn't just disappear. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Jennifer," she said, her voice turning sharp. "This is about honoring our family's legacy. A legacy your son will be a part of. We'll be calling him Peter." "No," I said, my voice shaking. "You won't. His name is going to be Leo." I hung up. The pressure campaign started that night. Text from Frank about duty and heritage. Daily calls from Carol alternating between syrupy guilt trips and outright demands. They told Mark I was being selfish, that I was letting a ghost from the past rob their grandson of his birthright. They were relentless. It was a miserable final month of pregnancy. Leo was born on a Tuesday morning, 10 pounds of fury and perfection. We were exhausted, overwhelmed, and completely in love. Mark sent a picture to his parents with the announcement, "Leo has arrived. Mom and baby are doing great." The reply came from Frank, "Unacceptable. You have dishonored this family." They didn't visit. They didn't even call. For 2 months, we were in a bubble of bliss and baby-related chaos, but a dark cloud hung over it all. Mark was torn up, angry at his parents, but miserable without them. I was consumed by a toxic mix of rage and guilt. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was Frank standing on our porch alone, holding a thick manila envelope. "Mark here?" he asked, not meeting my eye. "He's at the store." I held Leo closer, blocking the doorway. "Fine." He thrust the envelope at me. "Here. For the baby." I opened it. It was full of cash. Stacks of hundreds. My heart hammered against my ribs. "What is this?" $10,000, he said, his voice flat. "That should be enough to cover the legal fees and whatever else. Go to the courthouse tomorrow, file the paperwork, and change his name to Peter. We can forget this whole ugly business." I stared at him at the money, then back at his stony face. He wasn't bribing me. He was trying to buy my son's identity. "Get out of my house," I whispered. He just turned and walked away. When Mark got home, I told him everything. He saw the envelope on the counter and his face went white with fury. That was the last straw for him. The silence from their end became absolute. Then about 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Carol sobbing. "I can't do this anymore, Jennifer," she cried. "I'm so sorry. I just want to see my grandson. Please." Frank is sorry too. We were wrong. We just want to be in his life. Mark and I were skeptical, but the thought of Leo growing up without his grandparents was painful. We cautiously agreed to a visit. They showed up with a mountain of gifts, cooing over Leo and telling us how perfect he was. They apologized again, tears in their eyes. For 3 weeks, it was like a dream. They came over constantly, helping with laundry, letting us nap, playing with the baby. Things felt normal, repaired. But I noticed something odd. They never said his name. Not once. It was always the little guy, sweetheart, my handsome grandson. I pointed it out to Mark, but he waved it off. "They're trying, Jen. It's probably just a hard habit to break. Give him some time." I tried to believe him. I wanted to believe him. This afternoon, I took Leo to the park. It was a gorgeous day, and he was finally old enough to enjoy being outside. As I was settling him into the swing, I saw Carol walking up the path. "Fancy meeting you here," she chirped, her smile huge. She scooped Leo out of the swing and gave him a smothering kiss. "I was just getting some fresh air," I said, forcing a smile back. "He loves watching the dogs." Carol started parading him around the playground, showing him off like a trophy. She fell into conversation with another woman, a grandmother with her own toddler in tow. I hung back, pulling my phone out to snap a picture of them. The woman gestured to Leo. "Oh, he's just beautiful. What's his name?" I zoomed in with my phone's camera, ready to capture the moment. Through the speaker, I heard Carol's bright, proud voice clear as a bell. "This is Peter." The world narrowed to the sound of that single impossible word. Asterisk Peter. Asterisks. My phone clattered from my numb fingers onto the wood chips. The picture I took was a blurry shot of the ground. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It was like being plunged into ice water. The bright, sunny park, the laughter of other kids, it all faded into a dull roar. Carol didn't notice. She was still beaming at the other woman, bouncing my son in her arms. "My son, Leo!" I walked toward them, my steps feeling strange and disconnected on the soft ground. The other grandmother must have seen the look on my face because her smile faltered. She muttered a quick goodbye and hustled her own toddler toward the slide. "Carol," I said. My voice came out low and tight. "Jennifer, isn't this fun? He just loves the fresh air." She kissed his cheek, oblivious. "What did you call him?" Her smile froze in place, becoming a brittle mask. "What are you talking about, dear?" "I heard you. You introduced my son to that woman as Peter." She let out a nervous little laugh. "Oh, silly me. A slip of the tongue. You know, with the family tradition and all, it's just on my mind." It was the lie that did it. The casual, condescending way she tried to brush me off as if I were a hysterical child. I saw the whole 3 weeks for what they were, a long con. A campaign to slowly erase the child we had and replace him with the one they wanted. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I simply reached out and took my son from her arms, holding him tight against my chest. He smelled like baby powder and sunshine. "We're leaving," I said. I turned and walked away, not looking back. I could feel her eyes on me, hot with shock and indignation. I didn't care. I strapped Leo into his car seat, my hands shaking so badly I fumbled with the buckle 3 times. Once we were on the road, I pulled over, my heart hammering against my ribs, and called Mark. "She called him Peter," I said the second he answered. There was no preamble. She introduced him to a complete stranger as Peter. Silence. Then a low sound from Mark, like the growl of an animal. "Where are you?" "On my way home." "Good," he said, his voice hard as flint. "I'm leaving work. I'll meet you there. This ends tonight." When I got home, Mark's car was already in the driveway. He met me at the door, his face a thundercloud. He took Leo from my arms and just held him, looking from my face to our son's. "I'm so sorry, Jen," he whispered. I wanted to believe they'd changed. So did I. I said, my throat thick. He put Leo in his bassinet and pulled out his phone. He didn't hesitate. "Mom. Dad. You need to come over to our house, right now." He listened for a moment, his jaw tight. "No, it can't wait." "Get here." They arrived 20 minutes later, all smiles and faint concern. Carol came through the door first, holding a Tupperware container. "I brought that lemon loaf you like, sweetie." Mark blocked the entryway, his arms crossed. He didn't move to let them in further. "We need to talk." Frank grunted, stepping up beside his wife. "What's this all about? We were in the middle of dinner." "Jen took Leo to the park today," Mark started, his voice dangerously calm. "She ran into you, Mom." Carol's face went pale. "Yes, it was a lovely surprise. She heard you talking to another woman. She heard what you called your grandson." Carol clutched her purse. "I already explained to Jennifer. It was a slip of the tongue, an accident." "Was it an accident?" Mark's voice rose. "Or is that what you've been calling him this whole time, behind our backs?" This time it was Frank who answered. He took a step forward, his expression one of pure defiance. "We call him by his rightful name. The name he should have been given." The confession hung in the air, sickening and absolute. They weren't sorry. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Carol nodded, finding her courage in her husband's arrogance. It's a matter of respect for this family's history. Something Jennifer clearly doesn't understand. We're just correcting her mistake. In private, of course. I felt a laugh bubble up, bitter and incredulous. "Correcting my mistake? You've been lying to our faces for weeks. You pretended to accept our son, but you were just waiting for a chance to erase his name, to erase our choice?" "It was a selfish choice," Carol snapped, her voice finally losing its syrupy sweetness and turning sharp as broken glass. "You are denying him his heritage over some silly sentimental nonsense for a dead woman. That was it. That was the line. I saw something in Mark break. The last thread of hope of filial duty just snapped. He pointed to the door. Get out. Frank scoffed. Don't be ridiculous, son. We're your parents. No, Mark said, his voice shaking with a rage I'd never heard from him before. You are the people who tried to bribe us. You are the people who ignored us for 2 months. And now you are the people who have systematically disrespected my wife and my son in our own home. You are not welcome here. Get out of my house. Now. He took a step toward them, and for the first time, I saw my father-in-law flinch. Carol grabbed Frank's arm, her face a mask of fury, and pulled him toward the door. She threw the container of lemon loaf onto our porch as she left. It popped open, spilling cake onto the welcome mat. Mark slammed the door behind them and locked it. The silence that followed was deafening. He leaned his forehead against the door, his shoulders heaving. I went to him, wrapping my arms around him from behind. We stood like that for a long time. The anger slowly drained out of me, and in its place, something else settled. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't sadness. It was peace. The heavy, suffocating weight I'd been carrying for months, the guilt that I was the one tearing this family apart, was just gone. I hadn't done this. My grief hadn't done this. My promise to my grandmother hadn't done this. They had. Their obsession, their entitlement, their profound disrespect. Mark finally turned around, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. They will not see him again. I know, I said. Not until they can look him in the eye, call him Leo, and apologize to you for what they've done. I nodded, my heart swelling with love for this man. And if they never can? He walked over to the bassinet and looked down at our sleeping son. He gently stroked Leo's soft cheek with the back of his finger. Then they will never know him, he said, his voice firm with a finality that was absolute. And that will be their loss, not ours. He was right. Our revenge wouldn't be loud or dramatic. It would be quiet. It would be the sound of Leo's laughter in a house they were not welcome in. It would be every birthday, every holiday, every milestone they would miss, all because they couldn't offer our son the most basic fundamental respect of using his own name. They had chosen a ghost over their grandson. And now they would be ghost to him.
Story Teen.
My husband's family isn't complicated. They're just a collection of walking, talking, trauma responses held together by guilt and a misplaced sense of duty. At the center of this hurricane of dysfunction is his sister, Chloe. And my first real introduction to the specific brand of her insanity involved my underwear. We'd been dating for about 6 months. I was staying over at his mom's place where Chloe, then in her early 20s, was also living. I woke up, went to get dressed, and realized a very specific lacy pair of panties was missing from my overnight bag. I tore that bag apart. Nothing. I mentioned it to my husband, Mark, who just got this grim, familiar look on his face. Later that day, his mom, Brenda, was doing laundry. She pulled Mark aside, holding up the missing panties with a pair of kitchen tongs like they were radioactive. These are Alice's right. I found them in Chloe's dirty clothes hamper. Chloe just shrugged when confronted. I thought they were cute. I was going to borrow them. She didn't see a single thing wrong with stealing used underwear from her brother's new girlfriend. That was my welcome to the family moment. That was Chloe. She was the golden child of a messy divorce. Brenda, her mom, carried a backpack full of guilt so heavy it stooped her shoulders. She was determined that Chloe would never suffer, which ironically guaranteed she'd do nothing but cause suffering for everyone else. While Mark and his brother worked part-time jobs through high school, Chloe got an allowance. When they had to buy their own beater cars, Brenda co-signed a loan for a brand new Jetta for Chloe. The enabling hit a fever pitch in Chloe's 20s. Brenda was working 2 jobs, barely making her mortgage payments, while Chloe lived in her spare bedroom for $100 a month. She'd spend her days working on her portfolio, scrolling Instagram, and her nights going out with friends, all funded by a waitressing job she conveniently never had enough money from to, pay actual rent. Then the pandemic hit. Brenda, being older and with a pre-existing condition, was terrified. She needed someone to run errands to be her quarantine buddy. Chloe was right there living in her house. But suddenly a dream job in another city materialized. Brenda, bless her guilt-ridden heart, not only gave Chloe her blessing, but also gave her the down payment for a new car and used her connections to get Chloe the interview. 2 weeks after she got the car and the job offer, Chloe was gone. She left her mom completely alone in the middle of a global lockdown. Mark was incandescent with rage. She used her Alice. She took everything mom could give and then abandoned her when it got inconvenient. Of course, the dream job didn't last. Neither did the boyfriend she moved in with. 6 months later, we get the call. Chloe's been dumped and kicked out. She had nowhere to go. Brenda, of course, told her to come home. So Mark and I spent a full Saturday driving a U-Haul 5 hours each way to move her and all her crap back into Brenda's house. No thank you, no gas money, just a constant stream of complaints about how her ex was a psycho. This became the pattern. Chloe would get a boyfriend, move in with him, get dumped and evicted, and the family would swoop in to rescue her. Each time she was the victim. Each time she needed money, a place to stay, a shoulder to cry on. And each time, Brenda would provide it all, whispering, "She's just had it so hard." The last time this happened about a year ago, she needed a deposit for a new apartment. She'd been staying with Brenda for months, driving her mother up the wall, but now she'd found the perfect Times place. The only problem, she was short. $700 for the first month's rent and security deposit. She called Mark first, fake sobbing into the phone. Mark, who had long since run out of patience, told her no. Flat out. "Chloe, you work full-time. Where is your money?" Her excuses were a blur of car trouble and unexpected vet bills, and you know how expensive groceries are. It was all bullshit. We'd seen her Instagram stories, new tattoos, sushi dinners, weekend trips to the coast. So she called me next. That was her strategy. Pit us against each other. She laid it on thick, her voice trembling. "Alice, I know I haven't been the best sister, but I'm really trying to get my life together this time. If I can't get this deposit, I'm going to be homeless. I'll lose my job. Please. I'll pay you back with my very next paycheck. I swear on my life." Mark was standing right there, shaking his head, mouthing, "Don't do it." But I looked at him and I looked at the phone and I thought about Brenda, who would end up paying for it anyway if I didn't. I caved. It felt like the lesser of two evils, a way to buy some peace for the family. I sent her the $700. "I'll pay you back next Friday," she texted, complete with a dozen prayer hands emojis. Next Friday came and went. A month went by. I'd see her post about a new $200 purse. Then a concert. Then a bottomless mimosa brunch. I sent a gentle text. "Hey Chloe, hope you're settling in well. Just wanted to check in about that $700 when you have a chance." Radio silence. 2 months later, Brenda needed a place to stay for a few weeks while her floors were being redone. Her first call was to Chloe. It was the least she could do right. The prodigal daughter finally had a chance to repay a sliver of the debt she owed her mother. Chloe agreed, but her tone was that of a martyr bestowing a great favor. Brenda had been there for 3 days. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was Mark calling from work. I could tell from the silence on the other end when I answered that something was wrong. His breathing was tight controlled. "Alice," he said, and his voice was cold steel. "You are not going to believe the phone call I just got from my sister." "What now?" I sighed, bracing myself. Did her landlord kick her out for having mom there? "Worse," he said, his voice dropping to a low, furious whisper. "So much worse. She called me to complain, to scream at me actually, because Mom asked her for $10. $10. I repeated the words in my head. Not 100, not 1,000, not the 700 she owed me, 10 for toothpaste for their mother. The mother who had housed her, fed her, bought her cars, and bailed her out of every self-inflicted disaster of her adult life. Put her on speaker, Mark, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Call her back right now. He didn't hesitate. He dialed and the phone rang twice before Chloe answered, her voice already dripping with theatrical woe. What? Mark? Are you calling to yell at me more? No, Chloe, Mark said, his tone flat and dead. I'm calling for a budget breakdown. I just want to understand. You get paid on Friday, it's now Monday. Where did your money go? Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this, she whined. I have bills, my rent is due, my car payment. Your rent is due on the 1st, which is next week, Mark cut in. Your car payment isn't for 10 more days. I know the schedule. So try again. I had to get gas. And groceries, it's so expensive you have no idea. I saw your Instagram story on Saturday, Chloe. The one from that sushi place downtown. The omakase special there is $80 a person. Was that a grocery? There was a choke sound on the other end. That was a date he paid. Okay, Mark said, relentless. What about the new tattoo you posted on Friday afternoon, the one that covers half your forearm? I'm guessing that wasn't free. What did that run you, 200? 3? That was for my savings. It was for me, she shrieked, her voice cracking. You can't tell me how to spend my own money. I can, Mark shot back, his voice rising for the first time, when you're letting our mother go without toothpaste because you're too broke to spot her $10. The same mother you abandoned during a pandemic, the same mother who took you in every single time you screwed up your life. I am not broke, she screamed, a full-throated feral roar. I'm managing my finances. You don't know anything. Then I guess it's a good thing you're not broke, Mark said, his voice dropping back to ice. Because then there's no excuse, is there? No excuse for not helping Mom, and no excuse for not paying Alice back the $700 you've owed her for a year. The silence that followed was electric. I could feel the pressure building through the phone. Then the explosion. Fuck you, the speaker on the phone distorted with the sheer volume. Fuck Alice and fuck Mommy, I'm done with this family. The line went dead. Mark and I just stared at each other in the ringing silence. Before either of us could speak, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a notification from my banking app. Asterisk. Zelle payment received, Chloe. Last name, sent you. $700. Asterisk. It was proof. A screaming digital confession that she had the money the entire time. Her poverty was a weapon, and she'd just been disarmed. A few minutes later, Mark's phone lit up with a text from Brenda. Chloe had sent her $50 with the note here. Don't ever ask me for anything again. And then she blocked every single one of us. We made a pact that night, Mark and I. We were done. No more rescues, no more loans, no more emotional support for her self-made crises. We explained it to Brenda, who tearfully agreed. You're right, she sniffled. I've enabled her for too long. We all need to be a united front. That united front lasted less than 48 hours. Brenda called me, whispering like a spy. I sent Chloe a text, just to make sure she was okay, from a friend's phone. I told her I still loved her. The cycle clicked right back into place. Forgiveness without apology. The slate wiped clean, ready for the next toxic entry. But Chloe's brand of poison was too potent to be contained. Over the next 6 months, she systematically cut off everyone. An aunt who suggested she see a therapist was blocked. A cousin who didn't text back fast enough was ghosted. Mark's other brother, Ryan, was the last man standing, mostly because he ignored her. Then came the family barbecue for Brenda's birthday. A month before, Ryan got a frantic call from Chloe. She was short on rent again and couldn't bear the thought of asking Mom for money directly, not after how mean everyone was. She asked Ryan to be the middleman. "Just ask Mom for $250 for me," she pleaded. "Tell her it's for a car repair. She'll give it to you." Brenda, of course, handed over the money. And Ryan, who was just as done as we were, took that $250 and spent every cent of it on brisket beer and a giant birthday cake for Brenda's party. A party to which Chloe was pointedly not invited. We were all in the backyard laughing when the side gate creaked open. There she was. Chloe dressed for a nightclub, holding a single, wilted-looking cupcake. She surveyed the scene, the whole family, the food, the decorations, and her face curdled. "What is this?" she asked, her voice dangerously high. "It's Mom's birthday party, Chloe," Ryan said, not missing a beat as he flipped a burger. "And my invitation?" "Got lost in the mail," Ryan said with a shrug. "Same place. My thank you for the rent money must have gone." She threw the cupcake on the ground where it splattered near the dog. "You are all horrible, manipulative people," she screamed, tears welling in her eyes. She pointed a shaking finger at Brenda. "You let them do this. After everything I've been through," she stormed out, slamming the gate so hard it bounced off its hinges. Later that night, she sent a rambling, tear-filled voice note to Brenda, which was promptly forwarded to all of us. It was a masterpiece of victimhood, painting a picture of a poor, misunderstood daughter who was constantly being persecuted by her cruel, unloving family. Mark deleted it without listening past the first 10 seconds. "I don't even care anymore," he said, and I knew he meant it. I knew he meant it because we'd already passed our point of no return. I was reminded of it every time I thought of Chloe. It was an incident from 2 years prior, one that had seemed insane at the time, but now just felt like a perfect summary of her entire being. She'd called Mark at 2 a.m, whispering hysterically. "Mark, oh my God, there's someone in my apartment. I hear noises downstairs." Mark was instantly awake. "Did you call 911? "No," she'd hissed. "Don't be ridiculous." "Why is that ridiculous, Chloe? Someone might be in your house." "Because my landlord lives in the basement apartment," she explained, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "If I call the cops and it's just him, I'll look like an idiot. It would be so rude to wake him up with a bunch of police." Mark was silent for a beat. "So? What do you want me to do?" "Can you just come over?" she'd asked. "You can check it out. If it's a robber, you can handle it. If it's just the landlord, you can leave and he'll never know. It's perfect." She wanted him to leave our bed, drive 30 minutes across town, and potentially confront a burglar with his bare hands, all so she could avoid a moment of potential social awkwardness with her landlord. She would rather risk her brother's life than be perceived as rude. We said no that night, and we've been saying no ever since. The $700 was just the fee I had to pay to finally learn the lesson. Her blocking us wasn't a punishment. It was a reward. The silence she left behind is the most peaceful sound I've ever heard.
Story 11.
6 years. That's how long it took to scrape the memory of that day off the inside of my skull. For 6 years, I'd been the one who got left at the altar. It was a brand seared onto my identity in my hometown. Mark, my high school sweetheart, had left me a note in the church vestibule. A 3-sentence masterpiece of cowardice that boiled down to times, "I'm sorry, I'm in love with someone else and she's pregnant." Asterisk. My family was my lifeboat. My parents, my aunt, and especially my younger sister, Clara. She was the one who held my hand while I dry heaved into a toilet, my $5,000 wedding dress pooled around my knees. She was the one who boxed up every picture of Mark and threw them into a bonfire in our backyard. She helped me rebuild. Now it was her turn. And she was doing it right. Her fiancé Liam was a solid guy. A genuinely good man who looked at her like she'd hung the moon. The only problem was money. They were young, renting a tiny apartment, and trying to build a life on 2 entry-level salaries. A big wedding was a fantasy. which is how we ended up in a bridal boutique that smelled like champagne and anxiety. Clara stood in front of a three-way mirror, a vision in layers of silk and lace. It was the Times dress. The one she'd bookmarked 100 times, the one pinned to the top of her secret Pinterest board. It had delicate hand-stitched flowers cascading down the bodice and a train that seemed to go on for miles. It was perfect. It was also $7,000. I watched her face crumble as she looked at the price tag. The light in her eyes just went out. "Well," she whispered, her voice cracking. It was fun to pretend. She started to fumble with the zipper. "Wait," I said, stepping forward. I saw my own ghost in that mirror, a younger me giddy with a hope that was about to be obliterated. I had my own dream dress now sealed in a vacuum bag in my attic like a piece of toxic evidence. Maybe I could turn that poison into medicine for her. "What do you mean, wait?" Clara asked, her eyes already welling up. "Helen, there's no way." "Consider it my wedding gift," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "The whole thing. I'll buy it for you." The boutique fell silent. Clara froze. Then her face completely dissolved into tears. Not the sad, defeated tears from a moment ago, but a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated joy. She threw her arms around me, lace and tulle and all. "Are you serious?" she sobbed into my shoulder. "Helen, you can't. It's too much." "I can," I said, hugging her tight. "And I want to. You deserve to feel like a princess. No compromises." It was the best money I'd ever spent. Mom cried. The sales associate cried. The whole thing was a made-for-TV movie moment. For the next few weeks, I was the family hero. My generosity was the main topic of conversation. It felt good. It felt like I was finally closing a painful chapter and using my hard-earned success to create a beautiful new one for my sister. The deposit was paid. The dress was ordered. Everything was perfect. Until last night's family dinner. It was a casual Sunday thing at my parents' house. Me, Mom, Dad, Clara, and Liam, and my Aunt Carol. The air was thick with wedding talk, centerpieces, cake flavors, seating charts. I was sipping my wine, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the alcohol. I was genuinely happy for her. Dad was grilling Liam about pre-wedding jitters. "You getting cold feet yet, son?" he asked, winking. Liam laughed, grabbing Clara's hand. "Not a chance. Just nervous about tripping over my own feet when I see her walking down the aisle." It was sweet. Everyone smiled. Clara, a little flushed from her second glass of wine, let out a loud theatrical laugh. "Yeah, well, just make sure you actually show up," she said, her voice glib. A weird little knot tightened in my stomach. She wasn't done. She waved her fork in the air, a smirk playing on her lips. "Let's just hope he won't run away with a pregnant mistress or something." The words hit the air and hung there thick and toxic. My fork clattered against my plate. The sound was like a gunshot in the sudden silence. She hadn't just made a joke. She had recited almost word for word the single most traumatic event of my life. The line I had screamed at her through hysterical tears 6 years ago. Asterisk. "He left me for his pregnant mistress, Clara. Asterisk." My Aunt Carol broke the spell. She let out a sharp barking laugh. "Oh, Clara, that's just awful," she cackled, slapping the table. The warmth I'd felt moments before vanished, replaced by a glacial cold that started in my chest and spread through my limbs. The lively dining room, the smell of roast chicken, the faces of my family, it all faded into a dull humming background. All I could see was Mark's handwriting on that crumpled piece of paper. All I could feel was the suffocating weight of that veil. I looked up. Clara was still smiling a little nervously now, watching me, waiting for me to laugh along, waiting for me to validate her joke. My own sister. The one I just handed a $7,000 dream to, and she was using my nightmare as a punchline for a cheap laugh. My mother's face was a mask of strained pleasantry. "Clara, don't be morbid," she chided gently. My father cleared his throat. Helen, honey, she was just kidding around. But I wasn't listening. The blood was pounding in my ears, a furious drumbeat of betrayal. I stared across the table right into my sister's eyes. The smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of dawning horror as she finally registered the look on my face. She knew what she'd done. And in that one shattering moment, something inside me finally broke. My voice was quiet, but it sliced through the room. What did you just say? Claire's face went white. The smirk was gone, replaced by a panicked, flickering guilt. Helen, It was just a joke. A stupid joke. A joke, I repeated, the word tasting like poison. I pushed my chair back, the legs screeching against the hardwood floor. Everyone flinched. You think that's a joke? Helen, honey, calm down, my father started, raising his hands in a placating gesture. She didn't mean it. I didn't even look at him. My eyes were locked on my sister. You stood there in that boutique and you cried in my arms. You said I was the most generous person you knew. Was that a joke too? Were you laughing at me then, thinking about how you could use the story of my life's biggest humiliation for a cheap laugh later? Tears started to stream down Claire's face. They weren't the tears of joy from the bridal shop. These were the panicked, selfish tears of someone who'd just been caught. No, of course not. I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. That's the problem, Clara. You never think I was on my feet now, my whole body vibrating with a rage I hadn't felt in 6 years. It was the rage I should have felt at Mark, but had instead turned inward. Now it had a target. You took the single most painful day of my life, a day you supposedly helped me survive, and you served it up like an appetizer. You and Aunt Carol cackling like hyenas. Aunt Carol looked down at her plate, suddenly fascinated by her mashed potatoes. That is enough, my mother said, her voice sharp. You are making a scene, Helen. Apologize to your aunt. I laughed. A raw, ugly sound that had no humor in it. Apologize? Are you kidding me? I grabbed my purse from the floor and my keys from the counter. The metallic jingle was the only sound in the dead silent room. Clara stood up, her hands outstretched. Helen, please don't go. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Please. I walked to the door, my back to all of them. I could feel their eyes on me, could feel the weight of their collective judgment. They wanted me to be the bigger person. To swallow the pain, smooth things over, and let Clara have her perfect wedding. Just like they wanted me to get over Mark and stop being the one who got left at the altar. I paused, with my hand on the doorknob, and turned my head just enough to look at my sister. Her face was a mess of tears and makeup, her mouth trembling. She looked pathetic. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No pity, no empathy. Just a cold, hard finality. You can think about how sorry you are while you're shopping for a dress you can actually afford, I said, my voice flat and empty. Because as of right now, you are getting $0 from me. I didn't wait for a reaction. I walked out and pulled the door shut behind me, the click of the latch sounding like a gavel. I made it halfway to my car before the front door flew open again. Helen, it was my dad, his voice booming into the quiet suburban street. Get back here. This is absurd. I ignored him, fumbling with my keys, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't get the key into the lock. He caught up to me just as I got the door open, his hand landing on the roof of the car with a heavy thud. You're going to walk out on your family over a bad joke, he demanded, his face ruddy with anger. A bad joke. I finally got the car door open and slid inside, but he held it so I couldn't close it. Dad, she took a knife and twisted it into the deepest wound I have. And you're all defending her. Nobody's defending her. We're trying to keep the peace. She's in there sobbing, completely hysterical. Good, I said, jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Don't be so cruel, he snapped. She's your sister. She's devastated about the dress. All she can talk about is how she's going to lose the dress. Is that what you want? To ruin her wedding? His words hit me harder than Clara's joke. It wasn't about my pain. It wasn't about the betrayal. It was about the dress. About the wedding. About preserving the perfect family fantasy. I was just a line item, a check that was suddenly refusing to be cashed. I looked at him, my father, the man who was supposed to protect me. She's the one who was cruel. She took my generosity and threw it back in my face. This isn't about the money anymore, Dad. It's about respect. A respect she obviously doesn't have for me. That's ridiculous. It's dark humor. It's how kids these days talk. I'm not a kid. And that wasn't humor. It was mockery, I said, my voice hardening into something I barely recognized. You taught me to stand up for myself. This is me standing up for myself. I will not pay to have my own trauma used as a punchline in my own family. He sighed a long, weary sound of parental disappointment. Helen, for God's sake, just forgive her. Be the bigger person and pay for the dress. Don't let one stupid comment destroy your relationship with your sister. Our relationship is already destroyed, I said. She destroyed it tonight. Not me. I put the car in reverse. He finally took his hand off the door. I looked at him one last time, standing there under the porch light, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. He didn't get it. He never would. Tell Clara, I said, my voice as cold as the night air, that forgiveness is free. But a dream wedding dress cost $7,000. I didn't look back as I pulled out of the driveway. My phone was already buzzing in my purse. A text from Clara. Then another from my mom. Then a call. I silenced it, tossing it onto the passenger seat. They could leave all the messages they wanted. Let them call me harsh. Let them call me cruel. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't the victim in my own story. And that felt better than any dress money could buy.
Story 12.
5 years. We'd been together for 5 years, and 3 of them were spent staring at each other through a screen. I was 23, she was 25, and we were both drowning in the final brutal stretch of our college programs. The 800 miles between us felt more like 8000. Every conversation was clipped, strained. We were running on fumes, and the engine of our relationship was sputtering. The fight that broke everything started over something so stupid it still makes my head spin. My brother had posted a picture from his birthday dinner. Just a group shot. Me, him, my parents, and his new girlfriend, Sarah. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. It was her. My fiancée. You have a crush on her, don't you? The text was so out of left field I thought it was a joke. Who, Sarah? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. The way you're standing next to her in that picture? You're practically on top of her. I pulled up the photo. I was standing next to my brother. Sarah was on his other side. There was a solid 3 feet of air between us. Are you looking at the same picture I am? I'm nowhere near her. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared for a full minute. It's the way you look at her. I can see it. You think she's prettier than me. This was her new thing. Jealousy weaponized. Any woman I came into contact with, a classmate, a cashier, my own damn brother's girlfriend, was suddenly a threat. It was exhausting. This is insane, I typed back, my thumbs jabbing the screen. She's my brother's girlfriend. I barely know her. You're inventing things to be angry about. Her call came instantly. I answered and her voice was already tight with tears. So I'm crazy now, is that it? You cheat on me in your head, and then you call me crazy for noticing. Cheat on you in my head, I practically yelled, dropping my textbook on the floor. I'm studying 20 hours a day for my finals. I don't have time to eat, let alone have an imaginary affair with my brother's girlfriend. You always do this. You turn it around on me. We went in circles for an hour. Her accusations got wilder. My denials got louder. Every word was a shovel, digging the trench between us a little deeper. I could feel a migraine starting behind my eyes. I had a thermodynamics exam in less than a week that I was already on track to fail. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do times as times right now. Stop, I said, cutting her off mid-sentence. The word hung in the dead air. What, she sniffled. We need to stop. This isn't helping. I can't focus. You can't focus. We're just tearing each other apart before the most important exams of our lives. I took a deep breath. Let's take a break. You're breaking up with me, her voice cracked, panicked. No. Not breaking up. A break. A pause. 1 month. No contact. We just focus completely on school. We get through our finals and then we talk. When we're not this stressed out, when we can actually think straight, silence. I could hear her breathing shaky and uncertain. 1 month, she finally whispered. Okay. The 30 days were hell, but a productive hell. I lived in the library. I mainlined coffee and Adderall. I passed my exams. The silence from her was a constant low-level hum of anxiety in the back of my mind, but it was better than the screaming matches. I told myself I was doing the right thing, giving us space to heal, to reset. The day after my last final, I sat staring at my phone, my thumb hovering over her name. Before I could decide what to say, a message from her popped up. Hey, are you done with finals? My heart hammered against my ribs. Yeah. Just finished my last one this morning. You? Finished yesterday. I miss you. A wave of relief washed over me. Maybe it had worked. Maybe the space was what we needed. I miss you too. More than you know. We talked for hours that night. It felt normal. We avoided the big subjects, just catching up, laughing about stupid things. It felt like us again. For the first time in months, I let myself feel hopeful. I had spent over $17,000 on this relationship. Over the years, flights, gifts, dinners, 1,000 little things. I'd even had my grandmother's engagement ring professionally restored and customized for her a family heirloom that meant the world to me. I was all in. I just needed her to be too. A week later, we were on a video call. She was telling me about a difficult professor when her expression shifted. She started picking at a loose thread on her sweater, avoiding the camera. I have to tell you something, she said, her voice small. My stomach tightened. Okay. When we were going through that rough patch, before the break, I was really lonely and upset. I started talking to someone. An online friend. His name is Strat. He's in a few of the gaming communities I'm in. She looked up her eyes, pleading for understanding. He was just easy to talk to. He listened. And he helped me out. Helped you out how I asked my voice flat? Financially. Just a little. I was short on my textbook money and he sent me a couple $100. I was going to pay him back. A couple $100. From some random guy online, a guy she'd never mentioned. A cold knot formed in my gut, but I pushed it down. We were struggling. I was struggling. Maybe I hadn't been there for her enough. Okay, I said slowly. I don't love that, but I get it. You were stressed. We weren't talking. I was trying to be the bigger person. I was trying to make this work. Thank you for understanding, she said, relief flooding her face. It meant a lot that he was there for me. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't feel. As long as it's over, we're back now. That's all that matters. She held my gaze, but something was off. The relief in her eyes was being replaced by a shadow of guilt. She bit her lip, then took a shaky breath. "It didn't stop there," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Liam, there's more." My blood ran cold. The forced smile fell from my face. "What do you mean there's more?" She looked down at her hands, refusing to meet my eyes on the screen. During the month we were on our break, she trailed off, swallowing hard. Things escalated. Escalated, how I demanded, my voice rising. "What did you do?" She finally looked up, her eyes swimming with tears that didn't look real. They looked like props. Her lips parted, and the words she spoke shattered the entire world around me. "I sent him pictures of myself, Liam." My mind went blank. "Pictures? What kind of pictures?" Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, like she was reading a weather report. "Nudes." The video feed froze for a second, but her face was still there, a perfect mask of practiced sorrow. My world tilted. The floor felt like it was dropping out from under me. "You sent nudes," I repeated, the words tasting like ash. "To Strat. The guy who sent you textbook money." "Yes." No hesitation. Just a flat statement of fact. A laugh, sharp and ugly, tore out of my throat. "Of course. Of course you did. And all that shit you gave me about Sarah, about my brother's girlfriend, that was all just projection, wasn't it? You were already talking to this guy, so you had to invent a reason to believe I was doing the same thing." She flinched. A direct hit. It wasn't like that. "Don't lie to me," I snarled, leaning into my laptop camera. The person staring back at her wasn't her fiancé anymore. I didn't recognize him. "Don't you dare lie to me now. You picked a fight to push me away. You agreed to that 1-month break so you could have a free pass to test drive someone new." Her fake tears dried up instantly, replaced by a cold defensiveness. "I was lonely. You weren't there for me. Strat was. He listened to me. He actually cared about what I was going through. I was drowning in my final semester of engineering, the same way you were in nursing. We were supposed to be getting through it together." I slammed my hand on my desk, the webcam rattling. "Instead, you were getting validation from some random dude on the internet. You let him pay your bills, and then you sent him photos of your body. My body. The one you were supposed to be marrying." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I waited for an apology. For a sob. For anything that sounded like remorse. I got nothing. "Do you regret it?" I finally asked, my voice dangerously quiet. She looked away, tucking a piece of hair behind her ear as if we were discussing the weather. "No." The word hit me harder than a punch. "No. I don't regret it," she said, her voice gaining a chilling strength. She finally met my gaze on the screen. "Honestly, Liam, I was torn. I had real feelings for him. I almost used the money he sent me to buy a plane ticket to go see him." My vision swam. She hadn't just cheated. She had been actively planning to leave. She had weighed 5 years of my life, of my love, of my support, against a few weeks of online chatter with a stranger. And I had almost lost. "He told me to choose," she continued, as if she were the hero of this story. "He said he wouldn't be the other man. So I had to make a decision. And I chose you. I thought you'd be happy." Happy. She thought I'd be times happy, times to know I was plan A only because plan B had a conscience. She was presenting her decision to stay with me as a gift. A favor. "The ring?" I said, the words catching in my throat. "My grandmother's ring. The one I had restored for you. All the money, the flights, the years. That was all just a placeholder while you shopped around." "That's not fair. Fair, I exploded. You want to talk about fair? I have spent over $17,000 keeping this relationship afloat while you were taking money from another man and sending him naked pictures of yourself. I was your backup plan, your safe bet, and you have the audacity to sit there and tell me you don't regret a single second of it. I stood up, backing away from the screen, needing to put distance between us, even if it was only digital. We're done, I said. The words felt foreign, but right. The engagement is over. It's done. Liam, wait. I didn't wait. I slammed my laptop shut. The silence in my apartment was absolute. For 5 years, every quiet moment had been filled with thoughts of her. Now, there was just a gaping, echoing void. 2 days later, the phone calls started. Then the texts. A fire hose of apologies and excuses. Asterisk, I made a mistake. I was confused. I was just scared. I love you. It was you I chose. It's always been you. Asterisk. The words she should have said from the start now deployed like a last-ditch weapon system when she realized the consequences were real. I let her spin for a full day before I finally answered. I was wrong, she sobbed into the phone. I was so wrong. Please, Liam. 5 years. Don't throw it all away. I'll do anything. My heart, stupid and conditioned, felt a flicker of something. But my brain was cold stone. I had spent the last 48 hours talking to my brother, my parents, anyone who would listen. They all saw what I was too close to see, a pattern of manipulation I had mistaken for love. Anything I asked, my voice flat. Yes, anything. I promise. Okay. One condition. You delete and block every single male friend you have on all your social media and in your phone. Strat first, then all the rest. The ones you game with, the ones from high school, all of them. From now on, your only male friends are my friends and my family. That's the deal. It was an impossible, controlling demand. I knew it. But I wasn't trying to fix the relationship. I was testing the wreckage. I wanted to see if she understood what she had broken. Trust. Silence. Not the answer of, okay, done. Not, I'm deleting them right now, just dead air. Well, what about Mark? She finally stammered. He's practically my brother. And what about David? He's gay. And there it was. The tell. The final damning piece of evidence. Even now, with everything on the line, she was hedging, negotiating, protecting her network. She wasn't willing to give up her audience. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the sound of a lock breaking. You still don't get it, I said. It was never about them. It was about you. It was about proving you could be trusted again. And you can't. You failed. That's not fair. You're being unreasonable. I'm being done, I corrected her. I called your mom. She's getting the ring from your apartment and mailing it back to me. It's a family heirloom, and you are no longer family. A choked gasp on the other end. I hope it was worth it, I said, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt the immense weight of our relationship lift off my shoulders. It wasn't love. It was a burden. A nightmare I'd finally woken up from. Goodbye. I hung up the phone before she could say another word, and then I blocked her number. I stared out my window, the sky clearer than it had been in years. I had just lost my fiancé, but I had saved myself from a wife. And that felt like a win.
Story 13.
My girlfriend Chloe can handle chopsticks better than I can. I'm not kidding. She's got this elegant, precise way of plucking a single grain of rice from her bowl, a skill that took me 20 years to master, and she picked up in about 20 minutes. My mom adores her for it. More than that, she adores her for trying. Chloe, a blonde from Ohio with a laugh that can fill a stadium, will try anything. Stinky tofu. It's an experience, she'll say, pinching her nose. Durian. You only live once. My dad's bafflingly bitter herbal teas. She sips them with a straight face and says, "It tastes very healthy, mister." Chen. My brother David's fiancée Ashley is also white. That's where the similarities end. The first time my parents met her, Mom cooked for 2 days straight. She made a feast-glistening Peking duck, heaps of longevity noodles, steamed fish, delicate with ginger, and scallion baskets of xiaolong bao. Ashley sat at the table, a polite, frozen smile on her face, and moved a single piece of broccoli around her plate for an hour. I have a sensitive stomach, she explained, taking a sip of water. My mom's face fell, but she recovered quickly. Oh, of course, Sebastian, run to the pantry, get the saltine crackers. Ashley ate 3 saltine crackers for dinner. That was the beginning. It got worse. A few months later, it was Lunar New Year. Our house was a sea of red and gold. The air was thick with the smell of incense and pan-fried dumplings. My parents were handing out red envelopes, the crisp bills inside, symbolizing good fortune. When my mom approached Ashley with a smile, holding out the decorated paper, Ashley held up a hand. Oh, that's so sweet, but we don't really do that. My mom paused, confused. It is for good luck for the new year. Right, but it's February, Ashley said with a little laugh, as if explaining something to a child. New Year's was a month ago. We don't really celebrate, you know, the fake one. The word hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Asterisk. Fake. Asterisk. My dad, who rarely speaks, put his teacup down with a sharp clink. David, my brother, just wrapped an arm around Ashley's shoulder. Babe, it's just a tradition. And it's a lovely one, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. For you guys. She never took the envelope. But the wedding planning? That was the main event. That's when Ashley went from passive dismissal to active demolition. We were all at my parents' house for a Sunday lunch, one where Ashley had brought her own Tupperware containing a garden salad when she and David announced they'd booked the venue. It's a beautiful country club, Ashley beamed, showing us pictures on her phone of rolling green hills and a white pillared building. So classic. So American. Very nice, my mom said, her voice tight. We can have the tea ceremony in the garden. Ashley's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. Oh, we won't be doing a tea ceremony. No tea ceremony, my dad asked, looking up from his newspaper. It was the first time he'd ever shown interest in wedding details. No, Ashley said firmly. It's not us. We're not having any of that. Or the red dresses, or the dragons, or anything. We want a simple, elegant American wedding. She said American like it was a shield. Like she was building a wall to keep us out. My brother just sat there nodding. Yeah, Mom. We want to keep things simple. Simple, my mom repeated the word, sounding like a curse. Her eyes were glistening. Erasing us is simple. Nobody is erasing anyone, David snapped, his voice defensive. It's times our times wedding, isn't it? We get to choose. The rest of the lunch was murderously quiet. I watched Ashley pick at her lettuce completely unfazed while my mother stared at a spot on the wall, her food untouched. Later that week, I got the call I was expecting. It was my mom, her voice choked with tears. She wants us to be invisible, Sebastian. She is ashamed of us. Ma, that's not true. It is, she cried. No traditions, no family. She wants your father to wear a tuxedo, not his formal tunic. She wants to pretend we do not exist. Your father and I, we are not going. What, Mom? You can't be serious. We will not sit in the back and pretend we are strangers at our own son's wedding, she said, her voice gaining a steely edge. We will not be erased. If she does not want a Chinese family, then she will not have one. We are done. I felt a spike of panic. As much as Ashley infuriated me, this was my brother. A complete family implosion was not the answer. I drove over to their house that night. I found them in the living room, my dad staring silently into the fireplace, my mom dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I sat down on the ottoman in front of them. "Don't skip the wedding," I said quietly. "She does not want us there," my father said, his voice a low rumble. "She wants you there," I argued, though the words tasted like lies. "She just has a different vision for her wedding, and it's their day. It's not about us. It's about David and Ashley. We have to let them have the wedding they want, even if we don't understand it." I talked for an hour. I reasoned. I pleaded. I reminded them that David was their son, that cutting him off would be a wound that would never heal. I told them that being the bigger person meant showing up, smiling, and supporting him no matter what. Finally, my mom let out a long, shuddering sigh. "Okay," she whispered, looking at my dad. He gave a single, reluctant nod. "We will go." Relief washed over me, so potent it made me dizzy. I had stopped the bomb from going off. I had kept the peace. I left their house feeling like a UN negotiator who just brokered a ceasefire. Driving home, my phone buzzed. It was a text from David. Asterisk. "Thanks for talking them down. Huge help. Asterisk." I smiled, feeling a small sense of victory. Then a second text came through. Asterisk. "Hey, since you're on a roll, Mom's birthday is next week. We should do a family dinner. There's something important Ashley and I need to discuss with them about the wedding costs." Asterisk. The phone rang with an aggression I could feel through the floorboards. I saw David's name and picked it up with a sigh. "Hey." "What did you do?" he roared, the sound distorted by his fury. In the background, I could hear a high-pitched keening shriek that I recognized as Ashley. "What are you talking about?" I asked, already knowing. "The jewelry Mom just called?" She said they're not getting it. "What the hell did you say to them?" I said, "What, you didn't have the spine to say, David? That it's insane to give a $50,000 cultural gift to someone who spits on our culture." A shriek from the background became clearer. It was Ashley screaming at David. "Tell him he's a jealous, vindictive snake. Tell him." "You're a jealous snake, man," David echoed, his voice cracking. "You couldn't stand to see me get something you didn't have. You have to ruin everything." "Ruin what?" "Your cash grab." I shot back, my own anger flaring. "She wants an American wedding, remember? The American tradition is a toaster. I'll buy you a nice one. It'll even have a bagel setting." "This isn't a joke," he screamed. "That was supposed to help with our down payment. We were counting on that." And there it was. The ugly, bald truth. It was never about tradition. It was a transaction. "Oh, so you were just going to sell it?" I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Wow. That's even worse." "Fix it, Sebastian," he snarled, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Ashley was sobbing loudly, now a theatrical gulping sound. "Call them back. Tell them you were wrong. Tell them you were emotional and stupid, and you take it all back. Convince them to buy the jewelry." "No." The line went silent for a beat. I could hear him breathing ragged and fast. "No," he repeated, his voice full of disbelief. "No, David. I'm not doing that." "Then you're not coming," he said, the words cold and final. "You, Mom, Dad, Chloe. None of you. If the jewelry isn't at my apartment in a little red box by next Friday, you are all uninvited from my wedding. You are not my family anymore." He hung up. I stood there, phone in my hand, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. The silence in my apartment felt heavy, suffocating. He'd actually done it. He'd put a price tag on his family, and it was $50,000. The official uninvitation arrived 2 days later. It wasn't a call or a text. It was an email sent from Ashley's pristine corporate-looking account. Asterisk. Subject. An update regarding our wedding. Asterisk. David and Sebastian. The opening was a clear indicator of who was in charge. My brother was now a secondary character in his own life. Asterisk. Due to recent and unfortunate family disagreements that we have been unable to resolve, we have made the difficult decision to proceed with a more intimate wedding ceremony. Consequently, we will have to rescind the invitations for Sebastian Chen, Chloe Miller, and Mr. and Mrs. Chen. We wish you all the best. Asterisk. Asterisk. Sincerely, asterisk. Asterisk. Ashley and David. Asterisk. It was the most brutally polite go to hell I'd ever read. I forwarded it to my parents without comment. My mom called me 30 seconds later. Good, she said, her voice sharp and clear, devoid of the tears I'd expected. Good. The trash has taken itself out. Now we do not have to sit there and watch her pretend she likes us. She has made our lives simpler. Ma. No, I am serious, Sebastian. Your father and I are relieved. A person who will disown her family over jewelry is not a person we want our son to marry. But he has made his choice. The matter is finished. She was trying to be strong, but I could hear the tremor beneath the steel. This wasn't just losing a daughter-in-law they never wanted. It was losing their firstborn son. My father in the background said nothing at all. His silence was always worse than her anger. Chloe found me that night staring at the email on my laptop screen, reading the words over and over. She wrapped her arms around my neck from behind and rested her chin on my shoulder. You're wondering if you should have just kept your mouth shut, she said softly. I nodded, unable to speak. The guilt was a physical weight in my chest. I had pulled the pin on the grenade. I had started the war. Maybe if I had just let it go, let them give her the jewelry, my parents would still have their son. Look at me, she said. She came around the chair and knelt in front of me, taking my hands. Her reaction proved you were right. This wasn't about you meddling. This was about you holding up a mirror and her not liking the greedy, entitled person she saw. You didn't break your family, Sebastian. She did. And David let her. The wedding day came a month later. It was a perfect sunny Saturday in June. My parents' house was quiet. To combat the oppressive silence, my mom decided to wage war on her garden. She was outside from dawn until dusk, viciously pulling weeds, attacking overgrown bushes with a pair of shears. My dad locked himself in his study, ostensibly to do paperwork, but I knew he was just staring at the walls. I couldn't stay there. Chloe and I went for a drive, ending up at the beach. We walked along the shore, the waves crashing in a steady rhythm, washing away the silence. Do you think he's happy? I asked, watching a wave pull back from the sand. Right now, probably, Chloe said, squeezing my hand. He has a beautiful bride in a white dress at a country club. He has the American wedding. He thinks he won. And what did we win? I asked, the bitterness creeping back in. Us, she said simply. Look. She pointed back toward the boardwalk. My parents were there. My mom must have called them. She was holding a small paper bag, and my dad was holding 2 cups of his awful herbal tea. They walked slowly across the sand toward us. My mom handed me the bag. Inside were 4 perfect warm egg tarts from their favorite bakery. Her peace offering. We sat there, the 4 of us, on the sand. The setting sun painted the sky in streaks of orange and purple. We ate the flaky tarts, and my dad made Chloe laugh by describing how my mom had nearly decapitated her prized rose bushes that morning. For the first time all day, my mom smiled, a real, genuine smile. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from a social media app. A cousin had just posted a photo from the wedding. I felt a morbid curiosity pull at me. Against my better judgment, I opened it. There they were. David and Ashley. He was in a standard black tux. She was in a massive white dress, her smile wide and triumphant. They were standing under a flower-covered archway surrounded by her family. Her parents, her siblings, her cousins. All smiling, all blonde, all perfectly American. There wasn't a single Asian face in the photo. It was exactly what she wanted. We had been completely and totally erased. I looked at the picture at my brother's smiling face, and I didn't feel the sting I expected. I didn't feel anger or jealousy. I just felt a quiet, profound sadness. He had his simple, elegant American wedding. And here on the beach, with the taste of egg tart and bitter tea on my tongue, watching the woman I loved laugh with my parents, I had everything else. And I knew who had gotten the better deal.